Tim, could I just call you to order, please, and sit on the table? Okay, I apologise. Order, please. Thank you. I hope you all had a good lunch and enjoyed the fringes if you went to any of them. Please remember to switch off your mobile devices or at least make sure they are on silent. We're now moving on to the Mary MacArthur Health and Safety Awards 2019. Yeah. In 2017, we launched a new award for GMB Health and Safety reps who make outstanding contributions to workplace safety. This award is in honour of Mary MacArthur, who ended the barbaric practice of sweating workers and who organised safety standards for women working with explosives in World War I. And I am proud to announce the winner is, I feel like I should have a little envelope to open, Wayne Kidger, Midland and East Coast region, and our runner-up is Alan Law, London region.
President, Congress, it's an absolute honour to pick up this award. I feel privileged, I feel proud of my region, all the support they give me, my branch, and even on a wider circuit in the East Midlands as an whole, colleague in the West Midlands, also a GMB member. We've put together a health and safety forum, what we organise events for reps across the Midlands. And I'd just like to say thank you very much.
Well done to both of you. We now move on to Standing Order Committee Report number 2, and I believe, Craig, you're going to come and move that. Thank you.
President Conference, Craig Jones, Wales and South West Region, Standing Orders, Vice Chair, moving SOC Report number 2. The SOC has accepted an emergency motion as been ordered for debate. The emergency motion 2, closure of the Ford engine plant, stand in the name of the Wales and South West Region. The SOC is recommending that this is heard in the Industrial Policy Manufacturing session this afternoon. Congress, President, I move SOC Report number 2.
Does anybody want to speak in opposition to Standing Order? No? Report number 2? No? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the SOC Report number 2, please show. All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, and Craig, congratulations on your appointment of Vice Chair of Standing Orders Committee. Well done. Okay. So we can now move on to the motions on union organisation. So can I ask movers and seconders of motion 33, 44, Composite 1 and 51 to come to the front, please.
Oh gosh, it's really bright up here, isn't it, today? Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, you're going to be a hard audience, I can see that now. Cindy Gavin, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Moving motion 33, electronic nominations. President, Congress, Gaffer. He's not paying attention. We so easily use the term 21st century, don't we? But actually, are we truly there yet? I want you to indulge me, hence the reason why I sort of G'd you up to start off with. Can you please raise your hand if you have access to a computer, a laptop and internet, please? Just put your hands up. Fantastic. Keep them there for me. Can you keep your hands there now if you have a tablet or an iPad? Fantastic. Keep your hands up if you have a smartphone. Brilliant. Keep your hands up if you've got an email address. Fantastic. Right, that's your exercise for today. You can put your hands back down. Thank you. Congress, looking at you all in this hall, it appears that actually, yes, we have moved to the 21st century. Ourselves, our members, we are embracing technology. After all, it's there, isn't it? It's at our fingertips. How many of you sit there with your phone at the side of your bed and the first thing you do in the morning is wake up and check your emails? Just me? Okay. Embracing this technology makes it quicker, makes communication more efficient. It also reduces our carbon footprint. Take Congress this year, for example. How many of you got that great big thick War and Peace arrive on your doorstep that's known as the preliminary agenda for Congress? And then you got another one. And then we got another one, didn't we? Think of all those trees, our carbon footprint, but I digress. Congress, some branches that nominate delegates to conference, to regional council, are all being put at a disadvantage. Every nomination, as we know, is part of our democratic makeup. It's important, and it's essential that we have voices, and it's essential that our members' voices are being heard. Branches have duly met, had that meeting, done the nominations, strong-armed some people in coming up to the Congress and doing a speech, completed that paperwork, dated it, signed it, sent it off by post. What happens then? It doesn't arrive, or it arrives too late, and it gets there after the deadline. Speaking from personal experience as a branch secretary, it's frustrating, and that's putting it mildly. I know of branch secretaries, including myself, that have done that, posted nomination papers off, and thought, I'll scan it in as well, and I'll send it by email, just to make sure it gets there on time and by that deadline. Only to be told, paperwork wasn't received in time, or it didn't actually get there, or even worse, I'm sorry, but we don't accept your nomination by email. Are we really a 21st century union? This is not the same for all regions. Some do accept nominations and paperwork scanned in, signed by email. And this variation from region to region is unfair. It's essential that in our union, procedural processes be standardised across our union. So given the option of being able to send nominations, paperwork electronically, as well by traditional methods, if you want to go down to your office and post it, or you want to send it by the post, you can do. But having that option can only assist in truly moving our union into a 21st century. Think of the money we'd save in postage. Think of the money we'd save, bless you, in printing costs. Think about our carbon footprint. Even better, how much you think we could engage with our members a little bit more. Think about that productive involvement. Congress, I hope you support this motion. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Seconder for motion 33.
Hi everybody, my name is Yvette Mitchell. I'm from Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. I'm a first-time delegate and a first-time speaker. I'm seconding motion 33, electronic nomination, President and Congress. We are currently talking about the environment, climate change and the tonnes of waste produced. I know you're asking, what's this got to do with electronic nomination? But just bear with me for a moment. Do you know it takes one tree to make 230 average-sized newspaper or magazines? And that on a Sunday, 90% of the newspapers that we use or read are thrown away in Britain. And that is the equivalent of throwing away 500,000 trees into landfill. And the amount of waste paper thrown into landfill each year would fill 103,000 double-decker buses. The average family in the UK throw away 6 trees worth of paper every year. Therefore, how much more will we, GMB Union, be throwing away? Using electronic nomination, I believe, will help in the process of protecting and securing a better future, a better environment, and save unnecessary paper waste, rather than the fear of postal delays and forms going missing or misplaced. As stated, it will allow nominations to be accepted electronically, thus enabling more branches to have a voice at the click of a button, saving cost and a huge amount of time. Congress, please support and thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Mover of motion 44. What was 44? Yep.
Kath Pinder, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Regional President, moving motion 44, bilingual officers and reps. President, Congress. As a result of the chaos that is Brexit and the fear and uncertainty it has caused for all, we have a duty as trade unionists to protect those most at risk from whoever seeks to use this instability as a means of exploiting workers. Migrant and non-English speaking workers are a significant number, and every effort needs to be made to capture this area of the workforce. They are employed in predominantly low-paid, precarious work, and as such are subservient to bosses who may and will exploit. In Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, companies such as Cobra, Forza, ASOS, TK Maxx and many more employ non-English speaking workers, and faced with such inequality, GMB Organising Branch and the Migrant Workers Branch entered into a partnership to utilise the linguistic expertise of one and the resources of the other. The Migrant Workers Branch have produced translated material to take to workplace leaflet drops and are in the process of producing a translated PPE book that it is hoped can be sent to all non-English speaking members. GMB Organising Branch have agreed to pay accompanying and rep expenses for any member across branches where language is a barrier to recruitment. Our region have supported this initiative by funding a bilingual member from the Migrant Workers Branch to attend region 1 day a week to assist the ROT team and produce translated material for non-English speaking workers. As a result of this partnership and the support of region, in Yorkshire and North Derbyshire, we have the ability to identify a target company and in 24 hours have translated flyers ready for a workplace leaflet drop. Last year, during Love GMB Week, we gated many companies, and following one of these visits, I took a query from a member, but the language barrier made it difficult for me to understand fully the issue. Luckily, I knew a bilingual member. After many conversations and subsequent visits, it became apparent that there were serious issues. Extreme bullying and coercive behaviour was highlighted, which required police intervention. Possible trafficking was suspected, and the issue is now being dealt with by a senior officer. As a direct result of this member engagement, a GMB organising branch member who is multilingual has undergone initial support training. He will be deployed throughout the region in companies that are predominantly Urdu and Punjabi speaking. Through branches working together, BO5 and M35 have been able to reach many more potential members than they would have done alone. Through the work we have done, we have demonstrated that there's a very real need for every region to have at their disposal the resource of multilingual officers or members to assist where language is a barrier to understanding workers' rights and as such recruitment. Should the cost of employing such officers be prohibitive, then an enhanced accompanying rep rate should be established for multilingual members to assess in workplaces which have a non-English speaking workforce. Congress, this is a significant group of workers and are underrepresented and often exploited, and it's imperative that the GMB continue to lead the way in promoting the vital work they do and give them the representation they deserve. I welcome the Brexit statement, which recognises the valuable work of the migrant workers, and I urge the GMB to immediately assess the linguistic capabilities of each region and ensure officers and reps are in place in order to meet this urgent need. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Kath. Seconder for motion 44.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad mine was this lunchtime and not this morning. Teresa Humphreys, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Theresa may be resigning from the Conservatives, but I'm not resigning from the GMB, so you'll be pleased to know. Can I just say the opening speech from Barbara this morning was truly inspirational, so I just wanted to say that and thank you. Congress and visitors, as my fellow colleague has demonstrated to you, the need for more bilingual officers and reps across this union's 9 regions can only be beneficial for all. As a trade union, our aim is to continue to retain our membership and recruit more. By having more support financially and sharing best practice for these officers and reps, as Kath so greatly said, can only grow our great union nationally. Our union would be able to recruit members from workplaces where the need of a trade union is paramount and continue to retain the membership already in these exploited workplaces, and I'm sure we all know one or more. As a union, this would assist to continue to build the union's profile and could save members' lives in these workplaces where exploitation is happening now, and as my colleague mentioned earlier, these group of workers are underrepresented and are often exploited. We need to give them the right support and representation. I am proud of our region and the branches, BO5 and M35, sorry about that little slip in their advertising, for working together to be able to support and assist these groups of workers within 24 hours of it being identified, and for taking the lead in this issue. I thank you. I said earlier the need is urgent, and I ask you all to support this motion.
Thank you, Theresa, and thank you for your kind words as well. Thank you. Can I have the mover of Composite 1, please?
Patrick Bonner, Islington and London branch, first-time delegate and first-time speaker as well. Madam Chairman and delegates, We're talking here about the way we communicate with our members, and the introduction of GDPR sort of blowing a bit of a hole in all that process we used to have. We had more direct way of dealing with members, more openness, and now we've got to conceal a lot of the things that we do in order to protect the identity and information that goes to members. We work in a local authority, for example, and there we obviously have quite a number of unions operating besides ourselves. It's difficult to know who's who sometimes. Branch secretaries have been given the access to the database, but workplace representatives don't have that facility. So we need to have the same knowledge and the same access of who is a member and who isn't. Otherwise, we can't really progress the building of the union and approaching members to get information about what's going on within the workplace itself. Now, I know we all know generally who's who within the organisation, but in many cases I've been finding it's taken me a couple of years to get to know who's who, because people don't obviously, like I do with Jeremy Corbyn, carry a badge around saying, this is me and I'm a member of a GMB. But we've got the second difficulty, where we've got two branches in Islington, both operating within the workforce. Islington 1 in Haringey and Islington Apex. That's quite messy, because people come to us thinking they're a member of our branch, or looking for, because I'm a shop steward, I must represent them. But even in the same office, they're part of the other branch. So we have to work that one out as well. It's fine that they shouldn't know who's who when we send out a blind email copying them in blindly. But shouldn't we know? We should know who's members and who isn't. And we should have that access quite more readily than we do at the moment. So what we have at the moment is phone up the office and or maybe email one of the members and get the data back to see if a person is a member or isn't a member, and who they're a member of, which branch, for example, in our case. But when we contact the members, we would be using council IT. So I use my own email address at the council to contact a member dealing with the case where the member's possibly going to be sacked or whatever else. Now, that's not necessarily secure either. That's why part of this motion is to ask for email addresses via the GMB, so that we can do it much more sort of covertly or secretly away from the council's eyes. The other thing is that it's recommended that we carry our own, have our own email, but that sometimes means we have to carry a second computer. And I'm pretty sure that if we're already lumping around one computer because we work in a mobile manner, we don't want to carry around a second computer to have access to be officially dealing with GMB business, officially on a computer which is not registered with the council, but with the GMB. So I think that the secure emails and correspondence is fundamental, and access to the database in a better manner is fundamental. So I notice that this motion is going to be referred, or that's the recommendation, but I think some of us who are at the sharp end should be involved in discussing it and seeing how we can roll out a better system. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. The second of the caucus.
I'm Vanessa Sibold, first-time delegate, first-time speaker for London Region, Holborn branch. I am a bit nervous, so please excuse me. All email addresses are not the same. With the introduction of the General Data Protection Regulation, aka GDPR, workplace reps are being asked to use their personal email addresses to conduct their communications to members. I'm a senior convener at my office-based workplace. Since sending a couple emails from my private account, I have received a number of complaints about members not receiving those communications, which included notifications of meetings and information regarding personal cases. It turns out that a number of my emails ended up in spam boxes, or my personal email account was not recognized by the member. This change also made it harder for members to remember those meetings. In my workplace, which may be the case in a lot of others, our conference rooms are reserved via a calendar system that is accessed via workplace emails. Hence, I can no longer use calendar reminders for the meetings, and the end result is that we end up with about half the members showing up to meetings than we did previously. Some members have also complained about receiving emails on their personal accounts as they see these accounts as private and they are not allowed to access them at work, or they can get in trouble with their manager for accessing them at work. Therefore, if we ever need to contact members quickly for an immediate vote, it's likely that we won't get through to a number of people. I have been told that reps can continue to use workplace emails for some communications, but it's not clear what those communications are or who I can send them to, as any email to all members would potentially expose their identity. I'm asking for more clarity on what we can and can't do with workplace emails, and for the GMB to make sure that workplace reps have the tools to communicate with their members in a way that makes sense and is appropriate, while still respecting the privacy of everyone involved. Thank you.
Well done, Vanessa. Thank you. Can I have mover for motion 51, please? Motion 51, London Region. Yep.
President Congress, Jayashuklal Darcy, London Region, moving motion 51 on support for each all worker with English as a second language. My branch is extremely composition and we have worker with many language. Last week, BBC News reported that there are over 300 different languages spoken in London, with some more widely spoken than others. Approximately 13% of our total population was born abroad. It makes absolute sense for our members who want to access advice, support, and representation that they should be accommodated and more improperly understood. If we cannot provide our members who are unable to speak English fluently, then how are we able to prescribe ourselves to be given any all-inclusive trade union? When I member contracts a trade union by the telephone, they want to ensure that the person on the other end fully understands what they are saying without any misinterpretation regarding their issue. Unfortunately, we live in the real world, and this is not always the case. At our branch, we received report from our friends in Union Line who asked our regoing if we have any officers, for a start, who can translate into different language. Last year, I come to Congress and move a similar motion asking for Union Line to provide legal assistance in other language. And I understand that Union Line have made some progress on this. Last year, a Yorkshire region moved a motion asking for help with other language and for a regional poor interpreter. I have looked on the Congress 2018 action document of the website, but I could not see that any progress have been reported for either motion. We didn't need to employ interpreter. Many of our staff and branches have the skills. In London region, we have carried out a language audit among us staff and have a large range of abilities within the region to be able to help a member or be able to support reps. Language should not be a barrier. Our union needs to reflect the changing nature of the workplace and communities. Our motion calls on the region to do the same, and this information should be pulled together. Please support. I move.
Well done, thank you. Seconder for motion 51? Seconder, or is it formally seconded? Okay.
President Congress, Warsaw Unnakat, London region, first time delegate, first time speaking. Thank you. Thank you. Seconding motion 51. We need to make sure that we support our member and not insist that everyone should communicate in English. We also need to ensure that there is a mixture of male and female support for our member. I'm sure you will agree that a woman will feel more at ease speaking to another woman in her own language about emotional, sensitive, and stressful situation. We know that the union recognizes that there is a need to act on this, and we hope that as the motion is referred, that it will not be forgotten. We need action now. We should create a network across our region, or we could develop access to community forum to assist work with any language problem. Let us pride ourselves in eradicating the language barrier once and for all. Please support this motion. Thanks to London region and Wembley branch to encourage me. I'm a seconder.
Well done. Does anyone wish to oppose any of these motions? No? In that case, can I ask Bob Wellham to speak on behalf of the CEC? Thank you.
President, Congress, comrades, Bob Wellham speaking on behalf of the CEC on motions 33, 44, Composite 1 and motion 51. On motion 33, electronic nominations, the CEC is supporting this with a qualification. The CEC agreed bylaws for the 2019 CEC elections state that nomination forms can be returned electronically by branches. The qualification, as the motion alludes to, is that branches can still submit nomination forms by post if they so wish and are not restricted to electronic-only return. On motion 44, bilingual officers and reps, the CEC is asking for this motion to be referred. The CEC recognises the need for the Union to deploy speakers of languages other than English or use translation facilities, not just to support non-English speaking members in the workplace, but to organise non-English speaking workers across the economy. We should look at developing a network of officers with language skills who can be called upon in particular circumstances, and also develop technological solutions. The idea of charging enhanced contribution rates to multilingual places is, however, not attractive. On Composite 1, GMB activists' email addresses and GDPR, the CEC is asking for the motions in this composite to be referred. The Union last year took the major step of providing secure GMB email accounts to all branches and is considering how many other activities could usefully and cost-effectively be supplied within this facility. On motion 51, support for ESOL workers, the CEC is asking for this motion to be referred. The CEC recognises the need for the Union to deploy speakers of languages other than English or use translation facilities, not just to support non-English speaking members in the workplace, but to organise non-English speaking members across the economy. We should look at developing a network of officers with language skills who can be called upon in particular circumstances and also develop technological solutions. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking for motions 33 to be supported with qualification, for motion 44 to be referred, for composite 1 to be referred, and for motion 51 to be referred. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So in that case, can I ask, does Yorkshire North Derbyshire accept the qualification on motion 33? Thank you. Do you also agree to refer motion 44? Thank you. Does London Region agree to refer motion, the composite 1? Thank you. And do you also agree to refer motion 51? Thank you. In that case, I'll put those individually to Congress. All those in favour of motion 33 with the qualification, please show. Thank you. All those against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 44 with the reference back or the refer, all show. All those against? That's carried. All those in favour of composite 1 with the refer, all show. Or any against? That's carried. And all in favour of motion 51 with the refer, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. So we move on to the health and safety composite 11. Could I ask the mover and second of composite 11 to come down to the front, please?
Sorry I'm late. Stevie Robertson, Birmingham West Midlands Region, moving composite 11, GMB activists, mental health support. Presidents, brothers and sisters, comrades, whilst we always try to emphasise and put the emphasis on employers to be proactive in breaking the stigma of mental health illness and to treat mental health as a workplace issue, more often than not, workplace representatives will be the person who our members turn to. We know that 1 in 4 persons suffer from mental health illness every year. For the GMB, that's potentially 150,000 members suffering and needing someone to talk to, and some of them might be our activists, some of you sitting there now. We all recognise the hard work that GMB reps do every day, undertaking some multiple cases, offering a shoulder to cry on and a friendly ear for our members. But do we ever stop to ask ourselves, what cost does that have in the mental health of our reps? We often talk of the shop stewards being the lifeblood of the GMB. In today's environment, more and more of our casework has mental health elements. Too often our members unconsciously see us as counsellors as well as reps. Without realising it, reps often undertake this role with little or no thought for their own mental health. Our union shouldn't leave it up to the bosses to support the reps and when they're in times of need. We need to be there for them. Our reps may be unable or uncomfortable speaking to line managers and occupational health advisors. So where do they turn? Our GMB Health and Safety Department, our Young Members Network, National Equality Forum, they're all doing brilliant work. and campaigning around the issue of mental health. But what are we, the GMB, doing to support our own activists? Congress, we're not asking the GMB to provide counsellors or fund helplines. We're merely asking that the GMB explores ways to provide our lay activists who may be struggling to cope with a little bit of advice, signposting and support. This motion is only asking that we have a look at getting suitably trained individuals at a regional and branch level who can be there and available to provide support for our activists if needed. We're asking that we ensure that the lifeblood of the union have somewhere to turn if they find themselves in times of need and need some help. It's really not too much to ask for, to give a little bit of help to our own brothers and sisters who help our members on a daily basis if they happen to find themselves struggling to cope with the stresses and strain that go with it, as part and parcel of the role of a shop steward. This can only be beneficial to our activists, our members, and to the GMB. It's about time we practice what we preach. I'm asked that you please support this motion. It could save lives. Comrades, I move.
Thank you, Stephen. Seconder.
Cheryl Barnett, Birmingham and West Midlands region, seconding Composite 11. President, Congress, ever-increasing workloads with less staff, insecure work, redundancies and low pay all have an effect on our members, as well as potential issues at home. And we often find in their time of need, they will not turn to colleagues, friends, family or their doctor for support, but will often reach breaking point when faced with absent processes or worse, a disciplinary procedure at work. The pressure on our reps of trying to help, advise and be there for all our members can sometimes have adverse consequences in their own jobs, home life and our reps' mental health well-being. Congress, you may argue that workplace representatives should be able to access their employees' occupational health services if they need to speak in confidence. After all, our CEC believes that reps are not GMB employees, but only volunteers. It is their employer who has a duty of care, therefore, for their health and well-being. This is correct, but does this mean that the union should turn its back on people who have dedicated years, sometimes decades, to their union when they need our support the most? Please, Congress, support this motion and let's support our activists if and when they may be struggling to cope with the pressure that they volunteer to take on. I second.
Thank you, Cheryl. Does anyone wish to oppose this motion? No? In that case, can I ask Kath Sutton to respond for the CEC, please?
President Congress, Kath Sutton speaking on behalf of the CEC. The CEC is asking Congress to refer Composite 11 covering motions 141 and 142. Congress, support to our hard-working activists on mental health issues has been a recurrent theme since GMB first published its guidance on mental health for 4 years. It is clear that in time of crushing austerity, the mental health of our members is suffering, and that this is in turn impacting on our shop stewards, workplace organisers, health and safety reps. The CEC has in the past explained in detail why the GMB was not in the position to provide enhanced training and dedicated mental health officers. In recent years, we have had to reject motions calling for the GMB to offer its own helpline on this issue. as the cost is simply too high. However, the CEC is mindful that this issue will return to Congress year after year until a decision is taken and a definitive position is reached. The CEC therefore asks Congress to refer this composite motion in order that a working group can be convened, drawn from all parts of the Union, to operate on one union basis to example our approach to this issue of the mental health at work, and to develop and comprehensive and definitive positions on our campaign activity, the support we provide and the guidance that we give. The CEC believes that this is the only way in which we can ensure our viewpoints are taken into account, that the possibilities and the limitations can be properly explored, and that the buy-ins of the whole Union for the programme of activity can be credibly secured going forward. Given the scope of our undertaking, this is undoubtedly a long-term project, but the CEC would anticipate an interim report to be made at Congress 2020, with a full CEC special report to be delivered by Congress in 2021. Therefore, Congress please accept reference back of Composite 11 so that this important work can commence as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Does Birmingham West Midlands agree to refer? Yeah, thank you. In that case, all those in favour of referring Composite 11, please show. All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Can I ask the speakers on the motions for employment policy, rights at work, Composite 12, motion 170, motion 200, please? Could you come to the front? Thank you.
President, Congress, Matthew Denton, North Western Irish Region, moving motion Composite 12, Manifesto for Labour Law. The world of work has changed, and with it, the nature and role of the workforce. For the UK's 31 million workers, many of the changes have had a devastating impact on their working lives and their living standards. Britain's 31 million workers have been devastated by 35 years of neoliberalism. They are amongst the most insecure, unhappiest and stressed workers in Europe. They endure some of the highest rates of bullying and they have amongst the least opportunities in the European workforce for making their voices heard at work. On average, British workers work more hours per week, 6 more days per year, more years before they retire, after which they receive lower levels of pension than most of their European counterparts. In comparison to other European workers, they have generally received less education and training, and because of a lack of employer investment, their productivity is lower. They get fewer paid holidays than almost all European competitors. Their pay is so low that a great proportion of them are in poverty than almost anywhere else in Europe. The gender pay gap is at a wholly unacceptable level. British law on trade unions is the most restrictive in the Western world. This is indisputable in relation to the right to trade union autonomy, right to strike, and the right to bargain collectively. By 2011, Britain had fallen to the second lowest in Europe in terms of the level of collective bargaining coverage. We ask that Congress supports the Manifesto for Labour Law, which has at the heart of its proposals the need to ensure the voice of Britain's 31 million workers is heard and respected. In government, via the Ministry of Labour, in the economy, via the National Economic Forum, and in industry, via sectoral employment commissions. The aim of the manifesto is to shift the focus of labour law away from individual rights to collectively bargained standards, widely recognised as a more effective way to ensure fairness and to prevent the exploitation of the most vulnerable. The manifesto also addresses the growing problem of insecurity experienced by so many UK workers. It sets out radical dispute resolution solutions based on the view that labour rights should be universal in their application, covering all workers, and effective in the enforcement by the creation of a labour inspectorate and a labour court. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Matthew. Seconder for Composite 12, please. Is there a seconder? Formerly, thank you. That means mover for motion 170.
President, Congress, my name is Kevin Quinn, South London University's branch, speaking on motion 170, Bill of Rights for Workers. First time delegate, first time speaker. Thanks. I'm honoured to stand here at the Congress of a great union and a great trade union movement. The trade union movement delivered the weekend, delivered bank holidays and paid annual leave, delivered dignity at work. Through these achievements, the British worker gained a decent standard of living in relatively secure employment. And then along came the neoliberals. Along came the worship of the free market. Along came Maggie Thatcher. Thatcher put a price tag on anything that moved, liberated banking excess, criminalised organised labour. So where are we now, 40 years on? The rights that unions have secured have been systematically chipped away by those who worship profit and exploitation. Fake self-employment, casualisation, 0 hours contracts, unpaid internships, and on and on. Bad employers have turned the clock back 100 years. Plucking day labourers from a roadside for a few hours' work on a building site. Summoning youngsters on social media for the odd couple of hours serving food they can't afford to buy. So, Congress, can we turn back the clock on our rights? Can we simply reverse the legislation in some game of Back to the Future? Sadly, no. The old models of post-war Britain no longer apply. The traditional view of what employment even is has become so chipped away that it no longer applies to many workers. The traditional model of capitalism no longer exists either. It has been replaced by a globalised digital economy dominated by a complex network of transnational corporations and venture capitalists. So what is needed is a new approach, one that doesn't depend on battles in the court over whether a taxi driver or plumber is an employee or an independent contractor. There needs to be a fundamental redefinition of what employment is. There needs to be a clear legal definition of self-employment applying only to the genuinely freelance individual. Everyone not self-employed should then be defined as an employee, a dependent worker, and then the dependent workers should be covered by a Bill of Rights. A Bill of Rights covering all existing rights, the right to statutory minimum wage, paid bank holidays, trade union memberships, but also covering agreed disciplinary procedures, health and safety rights, procedures to deal with harassment and discrimination. None of this is pie-in-the-sky stuff. Many of us already enjoy these rights. What a workers' Bill of Rights delivers would be the basics for everyone, with clear definitions, without court battles needed for every basic right. We ask the GMB to work with the rest of the movement, and of course the Labour Party, to draw up a workers' Bill of Rights that could be delivered by the next Labour government to restore fully the dignity of employment. Congress, I move motion 170.
Well done, Kevin. Can I have a seconder for motion 170, please?
President, Congress, Leila Kassam, Southern Region, seconding motion 170, first time speaker. Like many other delegates, I have paid annual leave, pay when I'm sick, the right not to be dismissed unfairly. These are hard-won rights by our predecessors in the trade union movement, and until recently taken for granted. But in recent years, many wouldn't recognize these basic rights, particularly young workers, particularly migrant workers, but anyone can fall victim. By one trick or another, be it 0 hours contracts, be it self-employed status, by one trick or another, they are cheated out of these rights. The trade union movement cannot rest on its laurels. It must rise to this challenge. Over the week, we will hear where the GMB is doing just that, challenging the gig economy, challenging bad employers. But our hands are tied by legislation that is now toothless. We must call for new legislation, a new bill of workers' rights that delivers for all, that leaves no loopholes for unscrupulous employers to snake and slither through. A new bill of workers' rights that enshrines in law employment rights for all, holiday pay for all, sick pay for all. I second.
Well done, Leila. Thank you. Now I have the mover of motion 200, please.
Good afternoon, President Congress. Neil Lockwood, R75, Ripon and Thirsk Branch, North Yorkshire, Derbyshire region, moving motion 200. First time delegate, first time speaker. Thank you. This Congress will be well aware that back in 2012, this Tory government made several changes to the rights of workers which enabled scrupulous bosses to use workers' rights for their benefit. The Tory government claimed that this was to encourage small businesses to employ more staff by reducing hiring costs. As we all know, this just isn't the case. In the first year alone, bosses pocketed 4.5 million from the variation of the qualifying period. Unfortunately for workers, businesses have now become accustomed to know that it's relatively safe and easy to sack someone who has not yet been employed for the qualifying period, even if they don't have a fair reason for dismissing them. The GMB Union will continue to campaign nationally against the exploitation of workers through its distasteful use of 0-hour contracts. Time and time again, we hear of employers in all sections introducing 0-hour contracts with reduced basic pay rates alongside previously negotiated ones. These changes are leading to the degrading of all trades and positions, which is a smack in the face to GMB post holders who have, over the years, passionately and tirelessly negotiated pay with terms and conditions bringing them up to an acceptable living wage and work-life balance. The GMB have rightly exposed conditions at Amazon, Sports Direct, ASOS, and also highlighted concerns about treatment of couriers and drivers at Uber, Hermes and Deliveroo, to name a few. We have all seen growing evidence of agency workers and those working in the gig economy being exposed to poor working conditions. This growing trend raises questions over employment status and lack of workers' rights. Businesses have now stooped as low as they can and now some high street chains are hiring those who can afford it a 3, 6 or 9 month long unpaid internship with an unwritten promise it could lead to a full-time job, thus disadvantaging others who can't afford it. They get around the minimum payment legislation by claiming it's work experience they are offering. Companies are continuing to exploit the current economic situation for their profit-driven interests. If people could get better jobs with secure hours, they wouldn't take these jobs. A future government must decide whether the hidden costs to the state and the routine casualisation of labour in the United Kingdom are acceptable and question whether some of the extreme employer practices identified are actually legal. I call on this conference to back this motion and to lobby MPs and the future Labour government to prioritise and enact its 20-point plan for security and equality at work, which will bring about a fairer and more job-secure future for workers, and to stop unscrupulous businesses being watered down workers' rights as a tool for profit. I move.
Thank you, Neil. Seconder.
Graham Jarvis, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Seconding motion 200. President, Congress. This Congress knows that decent, hard-working employees from all fields of employment are constantly having their terms and conditions, along with pay, attacked by unscrupulous bosses. By bringing it in at the next Labour government, the 20-point plan for security and equality at work, this will achieve the following. It will eradicate zero-hours contracts used by ever-increasing numbers of companies. It will give workers equal rights from day one, whether they are full, part-time, temporary or permanently employed. It will repeal the Trade Union Act. It will raise the minimum wage to the level of the living wage, and there'll be an outright ban on unpaid internships. It would abolish tribunal fees to enable workers a fighting chance to get justice done, and strengthen protections for women against unfair redundancy, and to hold a public inquiry into blacklisting to ensure blacklisting truly becomes and remains a thing of the past. These are just some of the main points from the 20-point plan, which the Labour Party have promised to implement when next elected to govern our country. Comrades, I urge you to back this motion, so now and future workers get a fair deal at work. I second.
Thank you, Graham. Does anybody wish to oppose any of those motions? Okay, can I ask then Bob Wellham again to come and speak on behalf of the CEC, responding?
President, Congress, comrades, Bob Wellham speaking on behalf of the CEC on Composite 12. On Composite 12, a manifesto for labour law, the CEC is supporting the composite with a qualification. We welcome the proposals in the composite and that Congress has had an opportunity to hear the ideas contained in the manifesto for labour law produced by the Institute of Labour Law. The complementary motions heard alongside the composite have hopefully given delegates perspectives on how we can give more power to workers. The qualification is that the sectoral bargaining should establish a set of terms and conditions that can be built on at enterprise or employer level, which are legally enforceable. Therefore, Congress, the CEC are asking for you to support this composite with the qualification I have explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Does North Western Irish region accept the qualification on Composite 12? Yeah, thank you. In that case, I can put all those to the vote. All those in favour of Composite 12 with that qualification, please show. All those against? That's carried. Thank you. The CEC are supporting motion 170, so that all those in favour, please show. All those against? That's carried. The CEC are supporting motion 200. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Could the movers and seconders for industrial policy manufacturing please come to the front? That's motion 220, 223, Composite 15. That's Wales and South West to move, Northern region to second, and also we're taking the emergency motion.
President, Congress, My name is Peter Ellinger, Midland and East Coast region, second-time delegate, first-time speaker. Moving motion 220, campaign for government, investment and industry. As we all know, the manufacturing sector has been in rapid decline for the years. We have gone from the nation that led the world in industry to a now poor relation. As a nation, we have not filed the skill shortage, and their skills and knowledge are being taken to the grave. We haven't had the foresight to invest in apprenticeships, and this is to our detriment as a nation. Since 2015, there has been, on averages, a 30% reduction of young people taking up apprenticeships. The government target of 3 million young people starting apprenticeships by April 2020 is nowhere on the horizon. Since the introduction of the apprenticeships levy, the number have slowly declined. The apprenticeships levy that was brought into the bluster in industry is seen by most of the big players as just another tax, with the money they claim back not actually covering the training cost. There is a forecast shortfall of 20,000 engineers, 12,000 highways staff, but the list goes on and on. During the first 3 months of 2019, 25% of manufacturing companies turned down new businesses due to lack of skilled workers. The British Chamber of Commerce reported in January 2019 that the manufacturing sector is facing its biggest skill shortage in 30 years. 40% of the manufacturing workplace are now aged 50 plus, and while we know this workplace is valuable and have specialist skill, we need to be attracting to the next generation of workers. The GMB need to keep up the pressure on workplaces to help them recognize the skill gaps. The apprenticeships levy need to be fit for pursuers, but most of all, we have to get manufacturing apprenticeships back in the mind of our government, or our industry will collapse. Congress, please support this motion. I move.
Thank you, Peter. Seconder.
Shane Allinson, Midland and East Coast region, seconding motion 220, campaign for government investment in industry. President, Congress and visitors. Colleagues, as you've just heard, our industry is in massive decline. There hasn't been the investment by the government, and there hasn't been investment by the companies due to austerity, leaving us at the edge of disaster. Our manufacturing industry was second to none. And as world leaders, we led in innovation and productivity to our history of skills management and workforce planning. These skills were passed down generation after generation because we knew we had to sustain the industry. Where did we go wrong? The apprentice role has been decimated, and we are solely reliant on an older, ageing workforce. It's time to buck this worrying trend and get behind the GMB Making It campaign, which brings manufacturing back into the heart of Britain. We call on all governments of the UK to invest in manufacturing and create an environment that encourages manufacturing employers to invest. Buy for Britain. We need a procurement strategy that supports UK industry and supported employment. Negotiate trade deals that deliver for workers and industry, avoiding damaging tariffs on British goods. Build strong UK-based supply chains to support local communities. Support equality and inclusion by tackling barriers to work wherever they exist. Invest in skills, research and development and the technologies of tomorrow. Pursue a balanced energy policy that provides sustainability and security for the UK and our nation's industries. The Making It campaign says we need to tackle the myth that Britain doesn't make things anymore. Well, we did it before, we can do it again. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Thank you. Mover of motion 223.
Thanks, Joe. Ian Kemp, Yorkshire, North Derbyshire, and also proud to represent all the steelworkers in who are members of our union. Moving motion 223. President, Congress. 6 months ago, the Daily Mirror reported that more than half the steel used in government projects was made abroad, every single last tonne of which could have been made here in the UK. Yet again, the patriotic union flag-waving Tories have stuck two fingers up at British industry. Yet again, this government has betrayed British workers and their communities. And for what? To pay more for the steel through punitive exchange rates and haulage costs, to jeopardise the jobs of thousands of workers, to lose tax revenues from those working in the steel industry and those supplying the industry, to lose the chance of training more of our young people and giving them a decent job with decent pay. Now, in support of the steel industry, the GMB, alongside local communities and other unions, has campaigned in the UK and Europe. We've spoken at rallies, we've spoken at conferences, we've lobbied Parliament, we've talked to MPs, we've talked to ministers. This government should be the most knowledgeable about the steel industry ever, but they've not listened one iota. Despite our British-made steel being the best, despite the strategic importance of the steel industry, despite other EU governments listening to their steel workers, our own government has ignored us. And as a victim of Thatcher's milk snatching, which shows me age a bit, just as I didn't think that the Tories could get any lower, barely hours after pledging support of the steel industry, they callously allowed British Steel to go into administration. Their contempt shows we cannot rely on a Tory government to support the UK steel industry. Now, if you'll just indulge me for a few seconds, President, on behalf of our members in the steel industry, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for supporting us over the years. It's thanks to your support that, although we're a minority union in the steel industry, we're punching well above our weight. And I'd like to personally thank Tim Roach. In fact, his first engagement after being elected as General Secretary was at a Save Our Steel rally in Sheffield, which we're proud to share a platform with him. So, Tim, I'm proud and honoured to call you comrade, brother and friend. Comrades, we need a government prepared to deal with the issues affecting the steel industry, to deal with high energy prices, to deal with China dumping poor quality steel, with the issue of perennial American accusations of dumping, and yes, comrades, even of ownership. If we don't have a government prepared to deal with these issues, it won't matter whether we get a Brexit, a Lexit, a Norway plus or a Norway pi r squared. We won't have a steel industry, we won't have any manufacturing. Now, whilst this motion is about the steel industry, it could be easily about anything in manufacturing. So I'd just like to say to our colleagues in shipbuilding, to our colleagues in the potteries, and especially at this time, to our colleagues working in Ford at Bridgend. Solidarity to you and your communities. Your fight is exactly the same fight as me. That's why we need a Labour government, comrades. A Labour government committed to the British steel industry and British manufacturing. We need that commitment, not as a flag-waving gesture, not simply because it's patriotic, but because it makes economic sense. Comrades, let's tell this government and any future government that steel workers like me, we might have to address them like minions, but don't ever treat us like one. Save our steel!
Well done, Ian. Mover, the second action. Follow that.
President, Congress, comrades. Brian Golding, Yorkshire Derbyshire region, seconding motion 223. As Ian said, once again the Tory bastards let the British workers down. British Steel employs 5,000 people and a further 20,000 in the supply chain. And that's why it gets you angry. That's why they're a bunch of, I won't say again, but we all know what they are. France and Germany spend far more on the UK on state aid, despite also signing up to the single market rules. So are they really an obstacle? We can support our British industry. For example, in 2015, the UK government submitted plans to provide a subsidy for Drax power station to convert units from coal to biomass fuel. The Commission ruled in favour of the scheme. I was going to say the Tories destroyed the coal and coke industries, but lately we have learned that Tories have been supporting the coke industry, so let's say support the British steel workers.
Thank you, Brian. Mover of composite 15, please. That's Wales and South West.
Jake McLean, Wales and South West region, Appledore Shipbuilders branch, moving composite 15, British shipbuilding. First time delegate, first time speaker. President, Congress, the fight to prevent the closure of Appledore Shipyard was a courageous one, but should not have been necessary. The decision to cease shipbuilding at such an iconic location after 164 years was nothing short of a scandalous betrayal of a loyal and skilled workforce in the communities in which we live. Congress, Appledore is the latest victim not of any commercial decision by Babcock, but of a government that did nothing to support and secure the future of shipbuilding when the need arose. There's been a missed opportunity to make shipbuilding a central plank of any post-Brexit industrial strategy and by construction vessels paid for by the British taxpayers here in this country. Just over 60 years ago, British shipbuilding ruled the world, with up to a quarter of all ships being built in Britain. Today, that figure is less than 1%, and is only at that minimal level due to a policy of building warships in the United Kingdom. There is, however, a chance to leave the past behind and revive elements of commercial shipbuilding as part of a wider industrial strategy. Yet the government falls short of this, instead focusing all of its attention on the naval sector. There is a significant risk if commercial shipbuilding is not developed that the industry will default to be a purely military defence issue. This is not good news for defence and misses out on opportunities that can be had from commercial ventures. It not only keeps works in yards between MOD contracts, but can also export ships to the worldwide market, which keeps supply chains in work and the skills staying where they are and being able to pass on those skills to the future generations. This could help on the way to the renaissance of British shipbuilding. The need for greater government intervention in this proud and historic industry has never been more compelling, yet there has not been the necessary drumbeat of work. The infrastructure has been in place, although a need exists to invest more adequately. The Type 31E frigate build should have been the pivot of the national shipbuilding strategy, but suffered badly from a price restriction. Building the fleet of solid support ships in Britain would also have ensured the survival of Appledore. The government's inertia and failure to protect our industry led to the loss of 200 jobs at Appledore, along with taking massive sums of money out of the local economy and denying income tax and national insurance receipts to the value of something like £20 million each year. Appledore is the latest in a line of yards that has been starved of the oxygen of work supplied by a government obsessed with the free market ethic and putting everything out to international tender. This propped-up Tory administration simply hides behind the bureaucracy of EU regulations to justify its policy of subjecting key build initiatives to overseas competition, when those very same potential bidders are able to build logistics ships free of any threat to a process that leads only to a race to the bottom. Congress, working at Appledore was much more than just doing a job. It was a cohesive community of interest, a way of life for generation after generation, where skills and knowledge were handed down from father to son and where you were sorted out as a person. Shipbuilding is in our blood in North Devon, with every single ship leaving the dock being built with an immense sense of pride and passion. Colleagues, The government strategy is designed to restrict the scope of work that can be produced by UK shipyards, and are deliberately exposing contracts to international competition that could easily be designated as protected builds. It has the ability to build the fleet solid support ships in British shipyards, but refuses to use the Article 346 exemption to exclude the contract from procurement rules on grounds of national security. That is a denial of the need to support our shipbuilding industry, to retain skills and secure employment. As long as we have to compete on an uneven playing field against foreign yards who are backed by their governments, then the long-term decline in commercial and military order to British yards will continue unabated. The only strategy that operates here is one of offering work to yards outside the country. Congress, the national strategy intended to re-energise UK shipbuilding and grow the Royal Navy is clearly not delivering. Time is running out, and it's not on the side of our once great shipbuilding industry. How sad, but how avoidable too, with the necessary political will. Finally, President, my region accepts the qualifications set up by the CEC. It was not the intention to be jingoistic by using the phrase Britannia ruling the waves, but rather to express pride of the days of yore when shipbuilding was an industry to be coveted. I am moving this motion in a fight to save 40,000 shipbuilding and supply chain jobs up and down this country and to revive British shipbuilding. Let's get Britain building again and keep Britain afloat.
Thank you, Jake. Seconder from Northern Region.
President, Congress, Craig Dawson, Northern Region, seconding Composite 15. Congress, government announcements on auxiliary and support ships prove that the Tories are clueless. Our campaign for turning the tide shows a picture of decline. During the Tory years, we've had aircraft carriers built with no aircraft. The role of the UK government is frankly a disgrace. The British government is a big customer of manufacturing, yet they refuse to support our own industries. We should support our industrial base, Congress. Government needs to buy British and support British plants and manufacturing. Government should promote UK shipbuilding under existing European law. Construction of support, tanker and auxiliary ships can go to UK shipyards. However, this Tory government will simply not help. Congress, we need government to listen. We need Labour in opposition to signal that they will change procurement guidelines to favour UK employers, provided the work is given to a permanent UK workforce. That could be a key area of Labour's manifesto on manufacturing. Other countries promote their manufacturing industry. They have no problems ensuring their own workforce get the chance of an income with a permanent supply of labour and with the skills and training of their workers to meet the challenge ahead. In Britain, we seem to have successive governments who feel it is a virtue to outsource work and to give it away, to let shipbuilding in other countries thrive and to let our shipbuilding stagnate. Congress, it is time for government to act. And if they don't, we expect the Labour Party to say that when they become the next government, it is time to turn the tide and put the British back into shipbuilding. Congress, please support this motion.
Thank you, Craig. Can I have the mover for the emergency motion too, please?
President, Congress, Jennifer Smith, Wales South West Region, move an emergency motion regarding the closure of Bridgend Ford engine plant. Congress, the announcement that was made on Thursday morning has been a body blow to those who work at the plant, their families, the town of Bridgend, Welsh manufacturing, and the whole of the Welsh economy. This decision is alleged to have come out of the blue, and Ford management have stated that the reasons for the closure are not related to the uncertainty of Brexit in any way. Instead, they argue that the decision is only linked to the reduced demand for the Dragon engine. Well, I'm sorry, but I do not buy this flaming deceit. It is only 2 years ago since Ford management made it clear that if there was any possibility of a no-deal Brexit, where tariffs would be applied to essential components, then this would place the plant's future in jeopardy. It is therefore my view that the referendum decision, the recent EU election results, and the possibility of having a Tory leader who is a no-deal Brexiteer will have therefore been contributory factors in this dreadful decision. Congress, even if we fall for Ford's argument that the automotive industry is going through major global challenges, or that the demand for petrol and diesel engines is declining, the fact remains that Fords have failed to invest in engines for the future or in the Brighton Ford engine plant, despite all the changes to working practices that the workforce has agreed to be implemented. Congress, if Ford had invested in electric engine production, then this plant could have become a centre of excellence for the EU and UK, and these redundancies would not have been announced. Ford have abandoned this highly skilled and highly paid workforce, and in a week when Donald Trump had visited the UK and promised a phenomenal deal after Brexit, Ford had announced they will be opening a factory in Mexico where the wages are paid as a pittance. So much for a special relationship. Congress, the anger and devastation that this decision has caused ripples across the whole of the Welsh economy. It is a fact that not just the 1,700 jobs at the plant are at risk, but at least another 6,000 in the supply chain jobs are also at risk. A number of companies that have already been stung as a result of the industry to close Honda's site in Swindon may well go to the wall. We therefore ask the GMB to bring as much political pressure to bear as possible upon Westminster Government and the Welsh Government to reverse this decision and or to ensure that alternative buyers are found to continue work on this site. President, Congress, we must continue to fight for our members' jobs at Brighton Ford. They deserve nothing less. President, Congress, I have pleasure in moving this emergency motion on behalf of Wales and the South West region and call upon you all to support this emergency motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. The seconder for the emergency motion.
President, Congress. Sharon Harrison, Wales and South West region, seconding the emergency motion regarding the proposed closure of the Brighton Ford plant on behalf of Wales and South West region. Congress, as the mover of the motion has stated, this announcement has sent shock waves throughout the whole of Wales. It has always been evident that successive Tory governments have paid little regard for Welsh manufacturing, with many communities still not having recovered from the deindustrialisation of the South Wales valleys by Thatcher. President, this union of ours has been calling for the government to introduce an industrial strategy for the UK manufacturing sector for many years, leading the way by the means of Making It campaign. Despite this demand, which is supported by many employer organisations too, the Tories have seen 500,000 manufacturing jobs disappear in the past decade alone. Congress, 15,000 of those jobs have been lost in Wales alone, which doesn't sound much, but with a total population of less than 3 million, 15,000 on top of the thousands of jobs lost in the coal and steel industries in the 80s has decimated communities and left large areas of Wales as some of the poorest in the UK. President, we must fight to reverse this trend. We must fight to protect the Bridgend Ford jobs, and we call upon the GMB to create support for industrial action across all Ford sites in the UK. Congress, now is the time to make a stand. Now is the time to call for an industrial strategy that will see the Make In campaign the basis of the renaissance of British manufacturing. President, I have the pleasure in seconding this motion on behalf of the region and all our members at Bridgend Ford. I ask for your support, your solidarity and your commitment to fighting against this unjust decision. I second.
Well done. Thank you, Sharon. Does anybody wish to speak against any of those motions? No? Okay, can then I ask Eddie from the CC to give the CC's stance?
Evening. President, Congress, Eddie Marnell, responding to Composite 15 on behalf of the CEC. Congress, the CEC wholeheartedly supports these motions. Our only qualification is on a point of language. The CEC's preference is that the words Britannia ruling the waves, which some may associate with the British Empire, do not enter into the GMB policy book. Congress, there is no dispute between the CEC and the branch or the region on this point. I would like to use this opportunity to set out the support and solidarity of the whole CEC with the Appledore workers led by their rep, Jake McLean. They fought to keep the yard open. The yard might have closed, but the fight to get work into the yard goes on. Congress, they've been magnificent. Appledore rose from the ashes once before Congress. We must stand shoulder to shoulder and fight to make that happen again. We must save British shipbuilding. GMB has led that campaign at Appledore, Devonport, Camberlaird, Rothside, on the Clyde and anywhere else where jobs are under threat. Congress, please support the composite with the qualification I have outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. In that case, can I ask, does Wales and South West and Northern Region both accept the qualification on Composite 15? Yep, thank you. In that case, I'll put those motions to the vote. So motion to 220, which the CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. All those against, that's carried. Motion 223, the CEC are supporting. All those in favour, please show. All those against, that's carried. Composite 15, we're supporting with the qualification. All those in favour, please show. All those against, that's carried. And on the emergency motion 2, the CEC are supporting. So all those in favour, please show. All those against, that's carried. Thank you. That means we can move on to the CEC statement on Brexit. Here to move the statement on behalf of the CEC will be John Phillips, Regional Secretary for Wales and South West. Dave Clements for the CEC will second. And then could regions please be ready with your one speaker, because I'll be calling each region after the statement has been moved and seconded. So, and that will be in the order of Birmingham, London, Midlands, Northern, North West, Scotland, Southern, Wales and South West and Yorkshire. So if your speakers are ready to come to the front, that would be really helpful. Thank you. John? Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara, and congratulations on an excellent Congress so far. John Phillips, Regional Secretary, Wales and South West. Very pleased to be moving this Brexit statement on behalf of the CEC. Congress, Brexit is an industrial issue that affects every single member of this union. It affects jobs, pay, contracts, rights at work, and the public services that we rely upon. Our aim, as always, is to get the best possible deal for our members. When employers have tried to squeeze pay, make work insecure, or declare redundancies, we've pushed back in every way possible. But colleagues, we all know where the blame for the Brexit chaos really belongs. The Tories started all of this with David Cameron, who arrogantly made no plans at all in the event that people would vote to leave. It's seen off Theresa May, who refused to listen and compromise. The goodness only knows who the Tories will choose next. Whoever it may be, we can be absolutely sure that he or she will pander to the rich and play fast and loose with the lives of ordinary working people. This botched Tory Brexit has affected so many of our members already, whether it's the rising cost from a weaker pound in supermarkets or going on holiday, or the cloud of uncertainty across much of the economy. For some of our members, very sadly, it has even contributed to the loss of their jobs. Just ask those impacted, as Jenny and Sharon have said so passionately, by the Ford Motor Company's decision to close the Bridgend engine plant. The loss of 1,700 jobs and a devastating hit on the car industry in Wales, the town of Bridgend, the regional economy, and more significantly, the working lives of our members and their families. Congress, whilst in every case there are a range of factors behind closure and job losses, we are seeing Brexit making things harder, not easier, in so many workplaces, not least, of course, in the manufacturing sector. For some companies, it's literally the straw that is breaking or broken the camel's back. The CEC wishes delegates to know we have tried so hard to work with the government to get the best possible outcome, and this statement, Congress, reflects that effort and endeavour. Our General Secretary received a last-minute telephone call when Theresa May's deal was heading for the first of many defeats. After he checked his calendar to ensure it wasn't April the 1st, he had what I'm sure was a very interesting conversation with the Prime Minister, but of course she did not listen. She did not appreciate our priorities and did not show any interest at all in addressing any part of the root causes of Brexit. Colleagues, unlike the Tory government, GMB wants to provide real solutions for the problems working people face. A genuine agenda to take back control means ending austerity, bringing privatised services back into public ownership, and redistributing wealth and opportunity. Clearly, we'll need Labour in power for that. But we'll not let other parties off the hook in the meantime either. That is why, colleagues, GMB is proposing a fair movement of Labour agenda in this statement. There will be understandable anger at cynical employers undercutting the rate for the job. Fair movement of Labour means no jobs in the UK should only be advertised overseas. It means strengthening the rights of workers and unions to access and organise from day one. It means, Congress, fair work for everyone. And if there's a model to follow and pursue, it's the social partnership model that we are lobbying Welsh Assembly Government to introduce in Wales. Forget, colleagues, the right-wing press and their rhetoric about migrant workers because they make a positive and a real contribution to our economy and to wider society. But of course, many of the financial benefits of the added tax grab go to the Treasury and not to local communities, and they're not invested in public services either. We want to reverse all of that. So unlike bad bosses and opportunistic right-wing politicians, GMB stands, and let's be very clear about this, GMB stands to unite the working class and not to divide it. And you know what? This fair movement agenda can all be implemented now, even while we are still in the EU. We want to challenge all political parties to back this campaign immediately. We don't know who the next Tory Prime Minister will be, but Congress, I ask you this. Do you trust the likes of Boris Johnson or Michael Gove to look after the interests of GMB members? Of course you don't. We don't. That is why GMB will continue to make the case for the public and not for politicians to have the final say on any Brexit deal. In our day-to-day union life, we negotiate the best deal possible before putting it to members for them to decide if it's good enough. Of course, that should apply to Brexit too. I am proud GMB has stood up for our members throughout this very uncertain period. Some unions have tried to keep their head down, but that's not the GMB way, and that never will be the GMB way. None of us know how this uncertainty will end, but what we can be sure of, Congress, is that the GMB will continue to call out bad employers, protect our members' jobs and conditions of employment, and of course, challenge discrimination and inequality whenever and wherever it may exist. Congress, please support this statement.
Thank you, John. Dave. Dave Clements II is a member of the Brexit Working Party, so.
Good afternoon. Dave Clements, Southern Region, seconding the Brexit statement. President, Congress. As a lay member, part of the National Brexit Working Group, I bring 35 years of experience in shipping, ports, logistics and international trade, and I'm based in Dover. The Dover Strait is a major trade artery with Dover Port handling 120 billion of imports and exports with 10,000 trucks shipping daily. The current system allows frictionless trade, which is vital not only to the direct business, but all UK businesses around the country where GMB members work. Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab admitted he hadn't realised the importance of the Dover-Calais crossing. Most days, when not in Brighton, I look across the channel at France with hundreds of shipping movements, and there's a tunnel you can't see either. Dominic, hello. Thousands of trucks moving seamlessly every day, moving vital goods such as medicines, medicinal radioactive isotopes and the like. Moving on to Grayling, a man who blew millions on a company with no ferries. 33 million paid out on compensation so far. Eurotunnel suing because they were knocked out of the process. And now my lot, P&O, doing the same to get the compensation back for unfair treatment. Anyone with shipping knowledge would know the complexities of configuring a ship to a specific route, but Seabourn had no ships. Now taxpayers fork out for the incompetency of the Tories. What a shambles. Raab, Boris, Gove, whoever. One will be the PM. Frightening, isn't it? Thanks to 100,000 Tories. So much for restoring democracy to the UK. The GMB will not sit back while new Thatcherites threaten our members' jobs. Every model of Brexit shows a hit to the UK economy. Even Rees-Mogg admitted it might take 50 years to reap the benefit of Brexit. We will, the GMB, protect our members' living standards. And Congress, we will not allow Donald to get his hands on our NHS. And there's no chlorinated chicken or genetically modified crops for us either. The Tories always claim to be acting in the national interests, but from start to present, it has been about their interests. The GMB supports jobs, communities and standards, and the Tory nightmare is not our vision for Brexit. Please support this statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Can I ask a speaker from Birmingham region to come to the rostrum, please? Oh, no speakers? Oh. You don't want... Okay, sorry, thank you. London. Do you want to...
Barbara, President, Congress. Dave Levy, London Central General Branch from London Region, first-time delegate, speaking in support of the CEC Special Report on Brexit. Thank you. Brexit is poisoning politics in this country, and it's stopping the union movement, ourselves and the Labour Party from addressing the issues that matter to people. It stops us talking about how a radical manifesto can heal the country from the ravages of both Thatcherite and 21st century Tory austerity. Not only do Labour's promises of investment in infrastructure and education offer hope, the answer to low wages is labour market reform, stronger minimum wage legislation, and to empower the trade unions and regulate management. It's not to blame migrants, nor to extend the hostile environment to another 3 million citizens who are our neighbours and fellow members, nor is it to continue the Tories' voter suppression, excluding them from votes to which they are entitled through their citizenship. It's been clear since June 2016 and the failure of Leave.eu to articulate an exit model, there was always going to be a need for a final say referendum. At the time, or shortly after, I argued negotiations should be done by those that believe in it, and that's what's happened. But now we should be asked, all of us, those who voted Leave, those who voted Remain, those too young to vote last time, citizens abroad denied their votes, and those EU citizens resident in the UK, we should ask with humility, but we should ask if that is what is still wanted. Constructive ambiguity is no longer an attractive position. It loses both Remain and Leave votes, and this is proven to all except the most blinkered by last month's EU parliamentary results, the worrying subsequent polls, and for those of us who've been out there, personal experience. Labour lost nearly 60% of its vote, mainly to explicitly Remain parties. In my home in Lewisham in South London, despite the council's position of strongly supporting a second referendum, if it had been a local authority election, the mayor would now be a Lib Dem. This is in a local authority where there are no opposition councillors to Labour. The inconvenient truth is that loosely aligned Remainers lent Labour their votes in 2017. We should also remember that most of Labour's members, and so presumably ours, and our voters, want us to remain. The CEC paper states that we oppose a no-deal Brexit, and that is welcome. But that's where we were in 2016. And yet now we're in an extension period and running out of time to get a satisfactory deal. The commitment to a second referendum is absolutely essential. Imagine a worst-case situation next spring, should we leave on Tory terms. Brexit has led to queues on the M20, factory layoffs, or more factory layoffs, one should say, food and medicine shortages, and a high inflation after currency collapse. We'll be telling people it's terrible and it should be fought. But if we facilitate a no-deal Brexit, we won't be heard. It just won't wash. It's time. We need a public vote, and Labour should declare for Remain. There's no other option. Time's out. I'd also urge delegates to look with favour on motion 283. It's not a London region motion, so obviously we will listen to the debate before we make up our minds on which way to vote.
Dave,
thank you for listening to me.
Okay. From Lewisham, thank you. Midlands, do you want to send a speaker?
Good afternoon, President Congress. Paul Kenny, Midlands and East Coast region, first time speaker, first time delegate. I'm here with bitter experiences of Brexit. I live in the most Brexit town in Britain called Boston. And when we had the referendum, nearly 80% of the population voted to leave Europe. And as being a local councillor at the time and mayor, it was really disappointing when we have so many people from Eastern European countries come and work in our town and to see the hostility towards those people. That's why today I think the real message is about having a clear message. More recently, I stood at the local elections and lost. Yet again, Brexit dominated the local debate. What we need is we need some clear statements. And the one good thing about this document, it does give us some clear vision. For an example, you know, ending overseas, advertising of jobs, but also a proper migrant fund that really brings together our local communities. The government, more recently, had brought a migrant fund together of 1.3 million in Boston, and it's not delivering to the people that it should deliver to, and it won't. So we actually need to be very clear about what kind of there. So if we're going to develop a migrant fund, which I fully support, it needs to be targeted to proper there. And for an example, one of the speakers that you got coming in the next couple of days is Sadiq Khan. He was in charge of the last migrant fund. And one of the things that he didn't ring fence, so it needed to be ring fenced on certain issues. And I'd certainly be arguing we need ring fencing to make sure it does what it should be doing. I think the most important thing that we can do, you know, and I'm pleased to be a member of this union who's got a clear vision about what we want to do about protecting workers' rights. I can tell you, living in Boston, I see people exploited every day of the week, and that makes me shameful and appalled that we live in a country that allows that to happen. But my other concern is, you know, when I heard that man come and visit us last week, and he wants to take our NHS away from us, we need to say very clearly to Donald Trump, you are not going to have our NHS. It's ours, not yours. It's not here for profit. It's here to protect us. So my clear message to people, support this, because we need to make sure we have a clear message supporting the people that we care about. Support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Northern region, have you got a speaker? No? Okay. North Western Irish, you got a speaker? Formally, thank you. Scotland? Thank you.
Congress. John Dolan, GMB Scotland, speaking in support of the CEC statement. GMB Scotland supports CEC statement on Brexit. In Scotland, we are conscious of Brexit as a divisive issue in the UK. But in Scotland, the overwhelming majority of people in Scotland voted to remain in the EU. A report commissioned by GMB Scotland highlighted the fact that Scotland's exports to the EU are worth £14 billion per year, and 144,000 jobs in Scotland depend on the EU. Brexit will be a disaster for jobs in Scotland, and Brexit, particularly under Bojo, would be a nightmare. He threatens the whole future of the UK. GMB Scotland supports the motion.
Done. Southern.
Shamik Das, Southern Region, Brussels Branch.
First-time delegate, first-time speaker. Speaking in support of the statement, what we've seen over the past 3 years has been, well, disastrous, as we all know, and kind of being in Brussels, seeing it from the other side, seeing it at EU level, and seeing the kind of reaction of all our colleagues and comrades across Europe just makes it even worse, more embarrassing, when you look at how our influence as a country, as a union movement is diminished, as a Labour Party as well. And you see it kind of, we've seen it the past week as well with the visit of Donald Trump, where we're now in a situation where if we do leave the EU, the only hope for the economy would be to basically double up with Donald and kind of do some trade deal with him and risk everything, risk our NHS, risk our food standards, risk our workers' rights, risk our environmental regulations. And as we saw with the GMB report out today on the perils of WTO, where we'll see weekly shopping bills increasing, where families will spend £800 extra a year for their chlorinated chicken. So that's something we absolutely need to stand against. And you see it also in the figures in this report, that in 15 years' time, we'll still be £1.5 billion a year worse off because of Brexit under these deals. And you see it in the parade of Tory leadership candidates, each trying to outdo each other, which is why it makes it even more essential that we bring this back to the public, that we ensure we campaign absolutely for Remain, and that we do ultimately remain in the EU. And it is only by being in the EU that we can achieve a lot of the aims. You look through a lot of the motions that are appearing over the course of this week. For example, one on carers' leave, the work-life balance, and just in the past few months at EU level, the work-life balance directive is going through, which would achieve many of these aims, which we would never get under a Tory government and will struggle to even under a Labour government outside the EU. So, on everything, on steel as well, we've seen the EU acting to take retaliatory action against China, against the US, rather than just cave into them. And it's a lot of the problems that have been identified are not EU issues, not the fault of the EU, but the fault of the Tory government. And it is only by remaining in the EU that we can mitigate what a Tory government does, or even better, we can come in as a Labour government, transform the EU from within, and do all the good things we want, everything in the document that we have this week. And, let's remain and let's deliver a transformative workers' vision of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Welcome from Brussels as well. Wales and South West. You formally seconded or formally? Yep, thank you. Yorkshire.
President, Congress, Sarah Young, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region, supporting the speech on Brexit. Do we even know what it is yet? It's supposed to be about leaving the EU, but what it's proved to be is a blooming awful mess, what no one can agree on. It's divided the country and it's taken out 2 prime ministers. That's not such a bad thing. Tim looked well good outside number 10. Go and fetch keys, son. Wherever it is and wherever we are now, it's not what anyone voted for, be it a Brexiteer or a Remainer. There are scare stories of what will happen if we stay or if we go, and there's a song what goes with that. I'm not going to sing it, but it goes something like, should I stay or should I go now? If I go, there will be trouble. If I stay, it will be double. So come on and let me know. Should I stay or should I go? That's where Parliament, I think, is anyway. But seriously, whatever we do has got to be right for our country, and no one can tell us what that is. The Leave campaign quickly backtracked on 350 million quid on the side of a bus for the NHS. Toxic Theresa almost became a dictator with Brexit means Brexit. And negotiations which were her negotiations and only hers, no cross-party talks to get what's right for everyone, which led to a deal on the table what made it worse. A democratic vote took place 3 years ago and an outcome has not been delivered. That delivery has created anger, frustration and confusion, and now another delay until Halloween. let's not let them play trick or treat with it either. The whole country needs an honest and trusted exit that will protect every individual, rich, poor. In health, the NHS must not be on the table in any trade deals whatsoever. Law and legal rights, human rights must be protected. Trade in and out of the country must not be met with overpriced tariffs. Workers' rights, employment law, terms and conditions, trade union labour and relations and wages must be protected. All of the above must be protected by legislation. During the referendum, there is one thing that stuck in my head from one of the news channels. By leaving the EU, no one will be worse off. They will just have a little bit less than before. That's not acceptable. Any sort of Brexit has to be one that does not favour the elite, although with the Tory government it will. If Brexit is just to suit Farage, then it's wrong. If the Tories cannot do this right, then call a general election and give someone else a go instead of making a mockery of the UK and everyone who lives here. And yes, currently we are a laughingstock. If no one can get this right, then it must be put back to the country in an honest and strong debate. The questions asked were yes or no. Maybe they should have asked Noel Edmonds too, deal or no deal. However, and whatever we do in the coming months, it has to be the right thing. The democratic vote should be delivered, but only when it's right for all, and in a manner that will bring the country together, not breed hate, division, greed for the rich, less for the working classes, and damage employment. We need to leave in a way that will leave us stronger, in a good economy, and give us for all and not just the elite capitalists. I support this report.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I'll now move to the vote on the CEC statement on Brexit. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Could the movers and the seconders for political Brexit motions please come to the front? That's motions 283, motions 284, motions 287. Mover of 283 wants to come up. (283) Southern Region. Yep, come in. I can see.
Ava Payne, Southern Region, moving motion 283, GMB and Brexit. President, Congress. This Congress overwhelmingly supports the General Secretary and the CEC in consulting the GMB membership on Brexit. It is clear that the GMB membership, along with the membership of other major trade unions, do not support a no-deal exit from the European Union. I'm still tired. This is in line with over 75% of Labour Party members. So, to give it my personal spin, I and many other BME community now loathe the B word. It is now akin to a swear word and has the effect of making people glaze over. So, when the question was originally put, I just challenge anyone to explain to me what it was all about. Anyway, we fast forward to the present, and we aren't any the wiser. So I'll leave that with you, but it really needs to be sorted out. I had the pleasure of speaking with Simon Woolley last week from Operation Black Vote, and he's just accepted a knighthood from the Queen's Birthday Honours List, and he's been writing on this for some time, and he says that we were duped into believing that Britain would open its doors to black Commonwealth countries, while others shamelessly thought, I'm okay, let's stop the rest coming in. But in reality, BME communities, mainly 75 to 85%, voted to reject Brexit. Not least because we knew once the xenophobic genie is out of the bottle, we'll be the first to catch hellfire. So what now? Maybe it's time we were more vocal about what we expect from our elected representatives. And what is crystal clear is that what is being played out now is going to affect us for generations to come. So I use my sat-nav whether I know where I'm going or not. You can never tell what's going to happen en route. So I'm grateful for new information and guidance when I'm forced to take a diversion, or it just gets me back on track. If I make a wrong turn, sat-nav will get me back on track. It's time to make a decision on the information available to us now, and not be fooled into driving blindly down a dead end when a U-turn will get us where we actually want to go. So this Congress believes that GMB should join with trade unions and campaign for a people's vote that contains the ability to remain in the European Union and use its influence to ensure the Labour Party supports the people's vote. So Brexit might be remain. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Ava. Well done. Seconder.
President Congress, Alan Durant, Southern Region. Seconder to motion 283, GMB and Brexit. Congress, I'm proud to second this motion, asking Congress to give its full support to the General Secretary and to the CEC in consulting with GMB members on Brexit. The GMB, along with most other unions, do not want the UK to leave the EU without a deal. We believe that it's also the view of 75% of Labour Party members. So, comrades, this Congress believes that the GMB should campaign for a people's vote in a new referendum where staying in the EU would be an option on the ballot paper. Congress also believes that the GMB should use its influence to encourage the Labour Party to support a people's vote. But if we get a people's vote, then we've got a campaign to actually win that this time. Because you can guarantee that Boris will get his bus out again, and there'll be a huge lobby to actually go out of Brexit, and we won't be able to pull it back out of the fire then. So, colleagues, I ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Move on motion 284.
Linda Wall, New North West and Irish Region, moving motion 284, and also, if I may, supporting the CEC statement on Brexit. President, Congress, it's been a few months since this motion was submitted, and in that time the fear and uncertainty has only doubled. We've seen the complete unravelling of Theresa May's strategy on Brexit. It wasn't just this union that she failed to listen to. It seems that she's failed to listen to or consult anybody very much outside of the ERG and the DUP. And as a result, quite deservedly, Theresa May's deal has collapsed. It didn't have the support of working people. It was a bad deal that didn't provide any answers. We've also seen the fall of Theresa May herself, which will certainly be cheering this week. But we also recognise that the fear and uncertainty is all the greater now than it was a few months ago. And the fear of what will happen under a new Tory Prime Minister. I don't trust any of the motley crew who are standing to listen or consult any more than Theresa May did. They're only interested in keeping the Tory party together and keeping the Tory members happy. Johnson and anyone like him would quite happily negotiate away our rights and protections, and they would open the door to American corporations to take over parts of the NHS, as Donald Trump wants. And at least some of them would lead us into a no-deal Brexit. The Labour Party has, as we know, been torn apart on Brexit as well, and part of the motivation for this motion was saying that there needs to be a strong lead from Labour to support our people. Talking to the branch who put this motion, many of their members work in the chemical industry, where they have to deal with employers from all over Europe. And there's incredible fear as to what no deal will mean. They don't know if they'll still have their job, depending on the outcome of Brexit. You know, that's the reality, that's part of the reality that no deal will mean, is the incredible uncertainty and the threat to jobs. It's up to Labour now to stand up to a no-deal Brexit. I think we should strongly support the CCC motion. Opposition to no-deal Brexit is absolutely key. It should be the centre point of what the GMB is campaigning for and arguing for. And I think that the CEC statement on Brexit provides a clear direction there in terms of saying what no deal would actually mean. Labour should listen to trade unions and the GMB who speak for all members across all industry, people who voted leave and who voted remain. It's important to to take account of all those voices and to hear from people what the reality of no deal would mean. And I think by campaigning over that, and by fighting to stop a no deal, that's the way in which the Labour Party can bring the country together. Thank you.
Well done. Well done, Linda. Is there a seconder for motion 284? Was that formally seconded? Thank you. Motion 287, mover for 287.
Afternoon, Congress, President, Conference. I think the sister from Southern Region hit the nail on the head. We heard a really good debate what Brexit means in an economic context, but for the reality of a lot of BAME people, we're walking around with a target on our foreheads, on a target on our backs. When I came to Congress, I said to myself I wouldn't have anything to do with that B word. Well, here I am, so I offer my sincere apologies. Actually, as someone said before, it's not all bad, because it has helped us
to see the back of that awful Prime Minister, Theresa May. Problem is, one dangerous idiot is going to be replaced by another one. Our political leader, Jeremy, has quite rightly said that no Brexit deal can see the demise of our hard-won employment rights. We know the laws aren't perfect. We know racism in the workplace exists. We know that the race pay gap is even wider than the gender pay gap. But I shudder to think what work would be like if we did not have these EU directive protections in place. I could be called a Turkish bastard or a terrorist. I could be spat at. I guess these could happen now, but it is unlikely, as most people know, that discrimination legislation would see strong penalties in response. So, Conference, there is an irony here. Since the EU referendum, Brexit has actually underlined the need for us to keep the race discrimination laws as an absolute minimum. Attacks against immigrant workers, people of different faiths, the LGBT community, disabled people have all increased since the referendum. And the politics of fear and scapegoating of these people have gone into overdrive. Congress, Brexit has also seen a new weapon of mass destruction come into play, the weaponisation of the milkshake. It's brought a smile to many of our faces, with Stephen Yaxley Lennon being repeatedly targeted in the Northwest. Well played to those people. Milkshaking really took off after Yaxley Lennon was targeted. A milkshake attack on Nigel Farage prompted him to tweet. Sadly, Remainers have become radicalised. UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin, the misogynist who disgustingly talked about raping Labour MP Jess Phillips, has been milkshaked at least 4 times. I'm not quite sure how he's still walking the streets after those comments. Brexit divides opinion. Whilst we can sit and have a bit of a giggle about the milkshakes, the reality for many people who are not white British is far from funny. The United Nations recently reported that a Brexit-related trend that threatens racial equality in the UK has been the growth in an unacceptable, explicit racial, ethnic and religious intolerance. In the 3 years since Brexit, incidents have gone up from about 20,000 a year to now over 80,000 a year. And almost all of these, Congress, are racially motivated. Congress, this is a very important motion, very close to our hearts. We need to protect all our workers as much as we can, and this includes maintaining the current protections around race equality. So on this basis, I commend this motion to you and seek your support. I move.
Thank you, Febzi. Seconder.
Sarah Hurley, London Region, seconding motion 287. President Congress, since the UK voted to leave the EU, we saw on TV and social media an immediate rise in hate crime and the far right all over the UK. It was as if someone had given the green light or flicked a switch to give the go-ahead to hate someone just based on their race or origin. Congress, what followed was just as ugly, with the Tories being very busy backstabbing their leader, resigning all over the place and slating Labour, showing everyone that they were far from strong and stable, and not able to get on with the job or bring our country back together from the mess that was left by David Cameron, who is sitting back watching this disaster he caused with his trotters up. Congress, with the results of the MEP elections, it tells us that what lies ahead will be just as worse. So we must fight to keep the race directive and all the current discrimination legislation which currently exists in the UK. I second.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anyone wish to oppose any of these motions? No? Then can I ask Andy? Oh, sorry, there is. Okay. London. Somebody, you coming up?
President, Congress, comrades, my name is Gordon Cullen, London region, first time delegate, third time speaker now. I'll be speaking against 283 with respect to my previous speakers who share the same values, and I agree on a lot of what's been said, but every speech on Brexit has been based on fear. We're proud trade unionists. It used to be the default position of Labour and the left trade unionists who were Eurosceptic. They were against the EU. And as we see it, if Labour are seen to force a second referendum, because that is what a people's vote is, huge swathes of the country, especially in the old industrial heartlands, who have suffered 40 years of neoliberalism, started by Thatcher and now promoted by the EU through liberalisation drive, those old Labour heartlands, so needed for a Labour majority and Corbyn government, won't trust Labour in a general election after we say their first vote doesn't matter. People are well aware of other countries' recent history of being forced to vote twice on this. And if this is the case, I have little doubt that another Leave vote will return, but with another even worse toxic atmosphere. The only winners of this delay are the privateers and venture capitalists from the Brexit Party and the nationalists from the toxic UKIP. Let's push to get this sorted, move on, give full weight to Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, and let's just move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Does anybody else wish to come in on this debate? No? Then does Southern Region want to exercise their right of reply? Yes or no? Southern Region, does the mover want to exercise their right of reply? No? Okay. Then in that case, can I ask Andy Newman to respond on behalf of the CEC?
President, you're doing a great job, Barbara. Thanks. Congress, Andy Newman from the CEC outlining our stance on motions 283 and 284. Starting with 283, GMB and Brexit. The CEC stance is to support with some qualification. Since 2016, our union has sought to constructively engage with the government to ensure the interests of our members are safeguarded during their Brexit preparations, protecting the economy, jobs and employment rights. Frankly, we've been disappointed and frustrated at every step. Theresa May's proposed deal will be damaging to our members' industrial interests, and now we have leading Tories flirting with the idea of no deal, which might be a paradise for financial speculators, parasites and commodity brokers like Nigel Farage used to be, will be a disaster for real jobs, particularly in manufacturing and agriculture. Comrades, we don't trust this Parliament, dominated by the Conservative Party and the DUP, to protect our members' interests through Brexit. That's why we support the motion. But our qualification is that in September 2018, the CEC already decided that any final deal should be put back to the electorate for a public vote. Now, it may be that the only way to get such a public vote through Parliament will be to include the option on the ballot paper of maintaining our current relationship with the EU. If that happened, that will be consistent with GMB policy, the Brexit statement that you just voted for Congress 2019. Our second qualification is that this motion refers to a people's vote. The CEC Brexit Working Group prefers to avoid this term as it can be confused with the cross-party campaign to remain in the EU, a campaign which often seems to spend more time criticising Jeremy Corbyn than Theresa May and the Tories. I take the points that Gordon Cullen has made. Many of our members voted Leave. Many of our members voted Remain. We respect the views of both sets of members. Views are very strong on this issue. Because of that, the Brexit working group of the GMB prefers not to use the term people's vote and be confused with the active Remain campaigners. We prefer the expression a public vote on the deal. So with that qualification, we would like you to support 283. On motion 284, fantastic speech from Linda Wall, by the way, I think moved all of us. Our qualification is that the CEC does not believe that the chaos over Brexit uncertainty lies with the Labour Party. The blame for that lies absolutely squarely with Theresa May, with the Conservatives, and the failed approach of the government. So on that basis, please, comrades, support both motions with the qualifications I've outlaid. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Does Southern Region accept the qualification on motion 283? Yes? Thank you. Does North Western Irish Region accept the qualification on motion 284? Yes? Thank you. Okay, then I shall move to the vote. Motion 283, all those in favour with the qualification, please show. All those against? That's carried. On motion 284, all those in favour with the to support with the qualification, please show. All those against? That's carried. And on motion 287, all those in support, the CEC are supporting this motion. All those in favour, please show. All those against? That's carried. Thank you. What am I moving on to now? Right, can I ask movers and seconders of motions 273, 276, 278, 279, 280 and 282 please come down to the front. So if the mover of 273 is the first one up. Thank you.
President Congress, Mary Goodson, London Region, moving motion 273 on good work, great opportunities. Congress, I know I'm speaking to the converted, but we need to make everyone aware of the value of trade unions and the value of working with trade unions. As trade unionists, we should be relevant in all workplaces, and we should also be reaching out to new communities and embracing new, non-traditional workplaces. We believe that unions are best placed to be one of the stakeholders working with the Mayor's office on ensuring that workers are treated fairly and developing a model of what constitutes good work. As a trade union, we aim to end exploitation, discrimination and injustice and highlight poor working practices. Our representatives and activists are at the heart of the working to help employers to negotiate fair and beneficial agreements that help to achieve our purpose. Our motion aims to make Congress aware of current Mayor of London's Good Work Standard, which is seeking to improve working conditions across employers in the London area, promotes economic fairness and aims to make London the best place in the world to work. The Good Work Standard has both businesses and workers in focus, making sure all workers have the opportunity to discover and develop their talents and enjoy work that is fulfilling and rewarding. The Good Work Standard is like a little investors in people or the living wage accreditation. However, to qualify for this initiative and stamp of approval, the organisations will apply for accreditation and be judged on a set criteria, so they will be recognised as leading employers in London. The standard aims to benefit both businesses and workers and make a change to communities and society as the standard goes beyond the workplace. As we come to Congress, the Good Work Standard is about to be launched, and we are hoping that the GMB practices that we preach and become accredited to the standard, hopefully reaching the excellence level. As a union, we can use this initiative to help to get us into smaller workplaces, which we may not traditionally organise in. So this will be a great opportunity for us to grow and shine. Please support.
Thank you. Seconder from London Region. Seconder.
I'm Vanessa Sibold from London Region, Holborn Branch. Hello again, President Congress. I'm seconding on motion 273 on good work, great opportunities. Just to add, London and Southern Region of GMB and other unions have been involved from the start, working with the Mayor's office to make sure that union organization and representation are embedded in these standards, which are open to companies of all sizes and sectors. We made sure that the Good Work Standard has firm foundations as it sets clear employment practices as a benchmark for all companies to aspire based on 4 pillars: fair pay and contracts, workplace well-being, skills and development, diversity, and recruitment. Organizations will apply for accreditation and be judged on set criteria so they can be recognized as leading employers in London. The standard aims to benefit both businesses and workers and to make changes to communities and societies as the standard goes beyond the workplace. As we come to Congress, the Good Work Standard is about to be launched, and we are hoping that GMB practices what we preach and becomes accredited to this standard, hopefully reaching the excellence level. As a union, we can use this initiative to help us get into smaller workplaces that we may not traditionally organize in. So this will be a great opportunity for us to grow and shine. Please support this motion. Thank you.
The mover of 276. It would help if I turned my mic on, wouldn't it, really?
David Tuckwell, Southern Region, moving motion 276. President, Congress. Trade is the lifeblood of a country. Trade agreements govern how it benefits us. You've probably heard of chlorine-washed chicken, hormone-treated beef, genetically modified food, and Trump's comments on the NHS and its potential dismantling. We want to be protected from these, but bad trade agreements can be used as a lever to break open what we hold dear. Rich politicians, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Nigel Farage, they look forward to negotiating trade agreements that will enrich them and impoverish our lives. Businesses and governments often construct trade agreements to include dispute resolution in closed courts. These prevent scrutiny and hinder our ability to protect our public services and also restrict access to democracy and justice. There is always the risk that trade agreements build in threats to our health and to workers' rights and protections, sometimes by stealth. We need balanced negotiations for the good of all, not just involving politicians and business. Trade unions ought to be part of that process too, and to represent us. Please support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Seconder for motion 276.
Jeff Hector, Southern Region. I'm first-time speaker. Seconding motion 276. President, Congress, it is quite simple. We need to protect workers' rights and jobs and protect the standards and industry and defend the NHS. And the GMB must not be allowed to be swept aside. Members do not want lower living standards and pricing increases. Trade unions, the GMB, want a say in any future Brexit trade agreements. Support this motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Mover for motion 278.
President, Congress, Mary Goodson, moving motion 278. We come to 2019, and although we celebrate the passing of the 1967 Abortion Act and the repeal of the 8th Amendment in the Republic of Ireland, women in the UK are not equal. The anti-women legislation of Northern Ireland still insists that women are not to be trusted with their own bodies. The 1861 Offences Against the Person Act applies in Northern Ireland, making it illegal to seek an abortion and to bring on an abortion. Our hard-won 1967 Act, Give Us Some Rights, is not applied in Northern Ireland and leaves our sisters without support. We are not trusted to define what we want to do with our bodies. Opponents invoke the wrath of the gods to shame, demean, vilify and damn women and their clinicians. Lobby your local MP, join the organisations campaigning to bring equal status to your sisters in Northern Ireland. Tell your story, be an enabler for women who can speak and be proud to their daughters, mothers, sisters of the criminals who were and are spearheading the fight to control our own bodies. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Mary. Seconder.
Leslie Stansfield, London Region, seconding motion 278. First time delegate, but second time speaker this time. Okay. President, Congress. I am the daughter of a criminal who was never caught, but I stand by her decision to commit an act so heinous in the eyes of the law that my mother could have been sentenced to life imprisonment. My mum had an abortion in the early 1960s, and she bled in agony, shamed and embarrassed. My mum endured torture. My mum is a hero. But women in Northern Ireland who choose to terminate a pregnancy don't want to be heroes. They don't want or can't do arduous, lonely journeys to get a safe, medically supervised abortion. They don't want the threat of imprisonment. Recent Alabama legislation may shock us, but Northern Ireland law goes further and criminalises women who have abortions. Women just want access to local, safe, legal abortions should they choose. How dare Northern Ireland politicians force unwanted pregnancies on women? How dare they dictate what women do with their bodies? But now let us dare to change things and to trust women. Stand by our sisters in Northern Ireland who demand equal status with the rest of the UK. Support a change in the law where Northern Ireland politicians are dragged screaming and kicking into the 21st century. Congress, support this motion. Thank you.
Well done, Leslie. Mover of motion 279.
Ricky Jones, North West London branch, newly elected Labour councillor, first time speaker, first time delegate. President, Conference, I am pleased to be moving motion 279. Women and girls across the world face violence and the threat of violence every day. The Istanbul Convention is a European agreement from 2014 where countries sign up to and put in place legal steps to prevent violence against women and girls. Make sure there are resources in place to help victims of violence and protect those who carry out the violence. Rates of violence against women and girls are horrific. Even in the UK, 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence since the age of 16. Domestic violence will affect 1 in 4 women. 2 women each week are killed by their partners or ex-partners in England and Wales. This is not a problem we can ignore. It affects our friends, our colleagues, our families. 7 years ago, the government signed the Istanbul Convention, but the next step is a ratification. A ratification means all the measures in the convention will become law. While most of the European countries have now ratified the convention, our Tory government is still stalling. The motion calls on our union to make sure we are playing our part, and our reps have information to support to be able to recognise signs of domestic violence and to be able to signpost vulnerable women to a place that can help. The motion also asks the union to support the demands of the I See Challenge campaign, which is putting pressure on government to ratify the convention and to put pressure on the Labour Party to do the same. Let's not forget people like Sally Cullen, another woman who from the age of 15 suffered abuse from her husband. She was released in February when her conviction was reduced to manslaughter. And many women should be having the same situation going on. Let's not also forget women who suffer rape and female genital mutilation. Please support the motion to help vulnerable women and girls get the support and legal protection they need. Conference, I move.
Thank you. Seconder.
Congress, President, it's time enough for the UK government to ratify the Istanbul Convention. The UK currently discriminates against women experiencing domestic violence, and that is simply shameful. The probation service that we have in this country specifically discriminates against women by making sure that a perpetrator of domestic violence is dealt with by a far more junior probation officer than if there wasn't a victim of domestic violence. That means that a junior probation officer can deal with an offence such as actual bodily harm, whereas if actual bodily harm is caused to a stranger, then a senior probation officer deals with that offence. That makes women much more at risk of serious violence and harm, and this has to stop, and stop now. Time to adopt the Istanbul Convention. Thank you.
Can I have the mover of 280, please?
Tony L, Midlands and East Coast Region, moving motion 280. Why and how are children who are victims of trafficking being lost in our care system? President, Congress. The United Kingdom is the most prominent country of origin for trafficked children. Thousands are identified of victims of trafficking in the UK, with numbers rising each year. This is our problem. This is happening here, and we need to call on the government to recognise this growing issue and take action. Child trafficking is child abuse. It's defined as recruiting children, receiving and harbouring children for the purpose of exploitation. Traffickers use grooming techniques to gain the trust of a child, family or community. They may trick, force or persuade children to leave their homes. It can even be organised by the children's own families, and sometimes families will be asked for payment towards the service a trafficker is providing. Children are trafficked for sexual exploitation, criminal activity, including moving drugs, forced marriage, forced labour, and children who are trafficked are usually trafficked in more than just one way. Being trafficked is an abuse in itself, but these children have extremely complex needs and will experience other forms of abuse and neglect that impacts on their physical health, their mental health, social and emotional development. By working together, having commitment and putting resources in place, professionals can help protect, support these vulnerable children. Children are particularly vulnerable to trafficking if they come from an area where there is poverty or where there is war. And we know this is happening more frequently due to austerity and world conflict. Children are also being trafficked from one part of the UK to another, and a quarter of all trafficked children go missing from local authority care and are being failed by our care system. Across the country, 38 local authorities reported having at least one child who was not being found, and the numbers ranged from 1 up to 38 children in one area. Last October, 120,000 supporters called for specialist support for trafficked children, a message to the government that the public demanded a guaranteed specialist support service. Children need to be protected, and for professionals to work together to support them with the adequate funding in place for the services. Children's services have been cut year on year, but this problem is getting worse and worse. All of these children need an independent, trusted individual to support them, yet we don't have a comprehensive guardianship service available to them. We call upon the GMB to campaign in our local authorities and demand that our MPs take note and action this worrying concern. Congress, please support this motion. I move.
Thank you, Tony. Is there a seconder?
Sarah Thorpe, Midlands and East Coast region, first time delegate, first time speaker. Second in motion 280. In 2017 to 2018, there was 75,420 children being looked after by the local authority. This was then, this rise by 4%. This was a rise by 4% in 2016 to 2017. As funding is being cut, the needs for the service is increasing. Local authority beds are being reduced and private sector beds are being increased. This means our most vulnerable children's lives are a business model, with their needs being assessed on cost and profit, not on what they need. There is a shortage on foster carers and an even bigger shortage on foster carers for unaccompanied asylum seekers. Training is based on business service needs, so workers get training after the fact instead of being prepared. Workers struggle to access training due to staff shortages, even safeguard training, which is statutory. Facility time is under attack, which is affecting our workers directly and our vulnerable children indirectly. Victoria Climby's serious case review in 2001 and many after all identified the failing of communities within services and sharing information between different services. This still is a major issue within services, and then the GDPR is making information sharing even harder. So most of our vulnerable children are business models sitting on waiting lists for 6 months, workers with inadequate training and knowledge, thresholds for services too high, and residential homes running on less than the statutory requirements.
This is just some of the many reasons how services are failing our vulnerable children, from being targeted and groomed for the sole purpose of their worth for the traffickers, whether it be for child sexual exploitation, modern-day slavery or transporting drugs around the country. Congress, please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Sarah. Mover of 282.
Congress President Doug Rigby, Brainton Bockin, B22 branch, London region. Moving motion 282, stop the decline of the high streets. Congress, once upon a time, we had, like in the nursery rhymes, the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers. Please excuse me for using bad language. Margaret Thatcher once said, the British are a bunch of shopkeepers. Well, no longer, it seems. Now we have very little in high streets except charity shops. Cities, towns, villages no longer have butchers, bakers, post offices, police stations, bobbies on the beat, chemists, fruiteers, clothes shops, shoe shops, banks, pubs, just to name but a few. Whilst no one is averse to large shops in out-of-town places, however, if you live in a village or a town or a small community, all of the above are nearly non-existent. If a person needs anything from the shops or utilities mentioned, you'll need a car, as public service transport is non-existent unless you live in a village, unless you live in a large city or a town. The government must invest in villages and towns. We do not want to see boarded up shops or charity shops, one after another. Just recently, a member of the public was helping out the police by being publicly minded. He took it on himself to collect knives. However, when he went to find a police station to hand them in, he couldn't find one that was open. We need investment in shops in the high streets to be able to sustain towns and villages. Otherwise, the heart of the towns and villages will be ripped out of them. Back to basics. Butchers, bakers, police, post office. Congress, I ask you to move this motion.
Thank you, Doug. Seconder.
President, Congress, Alan Thompson, London Region, seconding motion 282. The crisis on our high streets started slowly. The challenge from large out-of-town supermarkets and retail parks caused many small, typically family-owned businesses to close. In recent years, however, even large employers such as House of Fraser and Pound World have gone into administration, which shows that no one is safe from the threat. Since 2013, town centres have lost on average 8% of their shops, though it's the number of jobs lost to this crisis that is often the tragedy felt at home. Over 160,000 retail jobs are predicted to disappear from our high streets by the end of this year. One reason why shops on the high street continue to struggle is simply because weekly wages have stagnated. Shoppers have suffered with these stagnant wages and relatively high levels of inflation, forcing cash-strapped families to make difficult spending decisions in order to cut costs. Another major factor is internet sales, now making up over 20% of all retail sales, led by online-only giants such as Amazon. Amazon, who have paid just £61 million in corporation tax in 20 years operating in the UK. Now, to give some context to that figure, that's less than Marks and Spencer paid in last year alone. We can change this by keeping pressure on governments to create a more equal playing field, ensuring large multinationals pay their fair share of tax, by continuing to campaign for a fair wage for all, and by shopping locally where we can and supporting small and independent businesses. Help save our high streets. Support this motion.
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak in opposition to any of those motions? No? Okay. In that case, the CEC are supporting all of the motions, so I can go straight to the vote. All those in favour of motion 273, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of 276, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 278, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 279. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 280, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 282, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. We're down to our last four motions of the day. Okay, so can I please ask movers of motion 288, 289, 290 and 292 to come to the front, please.
Okay. Miles Short, Midland and East Coast region, from Scunthorpe. Moving motion 288, improving Labour Party communications democracy. President, Congress. This Congress calls upon Labour Party supported MPs, Labour Party supported MPs, to sign up to a charter to communicate their decisions and activities to branches, to ask the MPs which we as a union support and back financially, to tell us what they've been doing for the last 3 months, 4 months, 3 years. I'm not asking them to come to a meeting or to talk to us or have a meeting, especially just to talk about that. What I'm asking for is an email, which won't take a minute, a telephone call to your secretary of your branch, and also just a letter. If you can't do an email, can't do a phone call, a letter saying this is what I've done for the last 3 months, and maybe we would support that. Maybe. And maybe other parties might take it on, but I can't see that happening. I can't see Boris Johnson or any of them other... I'm not going to say it. I'll say it this way. I'll say it again as well. No. just to do that. I know it's not going to happen, but I know our Labour MPs might do it happen. Our Labour MP, Nick Durkin, keeps in touch with us regularly, and if he can do it, so can the rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miles. Seconder.
President Congress, Paul Kenny, Midlands and East Coast region, first conference, second speech. I'm really pleased to support this motion. Very similar to the issue on Brexit, we need to make sure that we've got clear communications. If we're going to have a progressive government that delivers a manifesto like we did in 1945, we need to make sure that we have progressive communications. I can only tell you too often that if you're a member of the Labour Party, you often feel that we need to do better. And I just think the GMB need to be leading the campaign. You've only got to look at what happened last week in Peterborough, where the union did support, and we actually got a good win out of that. So it just seems to me that if we talk the right kind of language, we can kind of make sure that we get the right kind of objectives. If we need a Labour government, we need to make sure that we've got communications open. I would say support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mover of motion 289.
President, Congress, Dave Levy, London General Central. Still a first-time delegate. I'm moving motion 289. We all know that wages have fallen as a proportion of national income over the last 40 years, and that it was the unions that created the 5-day working week, the Health and Safety at Work Act, the Minimum Working Wage Age, the Wages Act, and many other reforms, all of them aimed at leading to justice in the workplace. And we all know that bosses, management, the Tory party have fought the unions and the justice that we bring every step of the way. Our predecessors knew that for justice in the workplace, not only did we need strong organisation in those workplaces, but we needed laws to allow us to organise and to force management to behave with decency to workers and their neighbours. And so we created the Labour Party. On another strand, after the Second World War, in the glow of the foundation of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was made, and the International Labour Organisation was founded. In 1979, with the election of the Thatcher government, there started a backlash against the achievements that we'd made, both in terms of justice and in terms of our rights to organise. Thatcher's seemingly annual changes in the law slowly introduced mandatory postal ballots, prohibited secondary picketing, constrained the use of political funds, restricted closed shops, restricted solidarity action, and constrained disputes to the workplace issues. Later in the administration, they increased the extent of individual balloting, requiring ballots on the political fund and then postal ballots on strike decisions. They prohibited disciplinary action for members that scabbed, restricted facility time, criminalised unofficial action, and mandated a 7-day waiting period. Sadly, the Blair and Brown governments failed to repeal a single one of these so-called reforms. In 2016, the Tory government also increased strike ballot thresholds, mandating a turnout threshold, which of course does not exist in elections to their own positions, so we're still waiting for that. We've also lost the right to undertake political strikes, for instance on the NHS funding, NHS funding and solidarity strikes, which lead to dreadful circumstances where ASLEF have worked during RMT disputes on Southern and where the UCU pickets cannot ask for solidarity from their co-workers but can from their students. The GMB has good, if not great, policy in opposing and reversing all these constraints on our right to effectively organise. We need an effective right to strike, which includes effective picketing, the re-establishment of workplace ballots as opposed to postal ballots, because the act of voting, the decision to strike, is a collective one and not individual. We should have the right to act speedily, especially in cases of victimisation, but also in pay disputes. Labour's 2017 manifesto looks good, the repeal of recent trade union laws and the commitment that a Labour government will ensure Britain abides by the global labour standards, the ILO conventions. This is more radical than it seems, since it was one of Thatcher's boasts that the UK has the Western world's most restrictive trade union regulation, and our laws break a lot of those standards. The effective right to organise is the workers' defence against discrimination and exploitation, and today's laws have a chilling effect on that right to organise and to take effective action. Labour's next manifesto needs to restore the effective right to organise. The movement needs a better goal than merely the repeal of the 2016 Act. Just to remind ourselves how far the UK has fallen below standards of decency, I'll quote part of Article 23 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The whole thing is worth reading, though. Everyone has the right to form and join a trade union for the protection of his or her interests. Let's get more of our union's policy into that next manifesto, and let's restore the right to organise. It's the only way to achieve justice in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Seconder.
President Congress, I'm Dave Reid, London Region, seconding motion 289. The video that opened Congress is an important statement as to why we need to pass this motion. The reason the Tories have rolled back our rights and the work and our right to organise is they always have. It's because of the victories they achieved. The Tory governments of Thatcher, Major have passed 7 acts, all of them restricting the rights of the trade unionists. The video showed how the GMB member was the first Minister of Labour, and we welcome Labour's commitment to recreate the position. Labour's manifesto promises to repeal the 2016 law, which introduced turnout levels for strike ballots. Something we're still waiting for Parliament to introduce for themselves. We need an effective right to organise, an effective right to strike, and on this issue, Labour can do better than repeal the 2016 Act. Let's make sure it does. As a union, we should put pressure on Labour in its manifesto to make the union stronger and help the working people of this country. Please support this motion. I thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Mover of motion 290.
President, Tom Kirkpollock, moving motion 290, Scottish politics on behalf of GMB Scotland. Congress, we believe the relationship GMB have with the Labour Party is and continues to be the best vehicle to promote the political agenda of GMB and the wider trade union movement, and to defend the essential public services on which our members, their families and the most vulnerable members of our society all depend. Congress, when Labour is strong, we march forward together, and when Labour is in power, we win together. However, politics in Scotland since devolution is unique and is rarely adequately reflected by the UK media. Without going into differences of public opinion on the major issues of the day, such as Brexit, the European parliamentary elections provided a salutary, if not shocking, snapshot of how support for the main political parties now varies throughout the UK. However, it is not only major constitutional issues being debated in Scotland. It is necessary for GMB Scotland to have our voice heard in Scottish politics, regardless of the fortunes of Scottish Labour. As a union, we have recognised the need for the union in Scotland to respond distinctively to the political environment we find ourselves in, and we cannot shy away from the implications when Scottish Labour fails to do the same. Our formal relationship with the Scottish Labour Party is protected in our rule book, but the current electoral position and the prospects for Scottish Labour are extremely concerning. Some believe non-existent. In reality, GMB Scotland has worked closer with the Scottish Government than they have with Scottish Labour to protect workers' rights in Scotland, workplaces such as Ferguson Shipyards and VIFAB. In the interest of promoting our objectives effectively in Scotland, GMB Scotland will examine how best to utilise political relationships in Scotland, and as the motion makes clear, we will involve GMB branches in developing a renewed strategy. Our goal is to maximise the political influence of GMB Scotland, not politics for its own sake, but more for the no-nonsense trade unionism that we have been rebuilding in Scotland. Challenging power, winning in the workplace and stepping up as the authentic voice of working-class Scotland. The aim of our strategy cannot be about defending a political party, but it's about defending the interests of our members. And make no mistakes, Congress, it will mean becoming more active, not less, and then pushing our priorities to the fore of Scottish politics. Please support us to make politics in Scotland work for the working people again.
Thank you, Tom. Seconder.
President, Congress, June. Congress, since this motion was submitted, the situation in Scotland has continued to develop. In 2010, at this conference after the 2010 election, I stated factually that there was actually more polar bears in Scotland than there was Tory MPs. But sadly, if a general election happened tomorrow, the Labour Party would be left without a single seat in Scotland. There are many reasons for this, not least the party's recent positioning on Brexit. But that's what the polling evidence suggests. Labour and the Tories would be wiped out, the Lib Dems would take 4 seats, and the SNP would retain or sweep the rest. The fact of the matter is that Scottish politics has changed and will continue to change, and we need to be able to tackle that. Our priority is the defence of our members' interests in the face of these challenges, and we need the capacity to campaign politically as this demands. That's why we are asking you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Mover of motion 292.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Congress. Barry Miller, Northern Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Moving motion 292. Congress, our region have the new submarines that have been commissioned and built at the Barrow shipyard. The yard is recognised as one of the best anywhere in the world. The workers at Barrow In fact, the GMB members at the Barrow Yard have some of the highest skills levels anywhere for building submarines. Congress, we know our region, it takes about 10 years to build and ensure safe delivery of the submarine. We know there's a potential in Barrow. We have 40 years worth of work at stake. Congress, that is work for GMB members, their families, the community of South Cumbria and the surrounding areas. We also know that the supply chain across the UK is vast. In the GMB report on Turning the Tide, we have set out how the shipbuilding industry and indeed the wider manufacturing in the UK has declined. We cannot let any government dilute our skills and outsource the manufacturing of key areas of our economy. Congress, we expect terms of defence to put our members' jobs and terms and conditions at the heart of our work in these workplaces. We also reserve the right to campaign for an ethical approach to exports. Congress, the levels of skills that our members have are second to none. In Barrow, we have a good scheme for apprentices. That means our younger members and their families will have jobs, security of employment and income for decades to come. Local communities will have the good mix of work and income. The simple fact is you can't turn off the tap for defence skills and overnight turn them into civilian use. We've had this before across the northern region. That's why former shipyards have no work. Please support, I move.
Thank you, Barry. Is there a seconder for motion 292, or is it formally seconded? Thank you, Northern Region. In that case, does anybody wish to oppose any of those motions? No? In that case, can I ask Dean Gilligan to respond on behalf of the CEC?
President Congress, Dean Gilligan speaking on behalf of the CEC on motions 288 and 289. On motion 288, improving Labour Party communication and democracy, the CEC is supporting this motion with a qualification. We support the principle of the motion, which encourages GMB MPs and all Labour MPs to report to GMB branches affiliated to the CLPs. The qualification is that in line with our political fund, branches are unable to sponsor MPs. GMB branches affiliate to constituency Labour parties with payments made by the political funds held in regions. On motion 292, Defence Diversification, the CEC is supporting this motion with a qualification. We are proud of our long history of representing workers in the defence manufacturing industry, and we will continue to campaign to preserve high-skilled, well-paid, and the communities that they sustain. Defence manufacturing jobs often have no local equivalent, which means that workers who do lose their jobs can find it difficult to relocate, and there is no guarantee that funding for alternative employment will be sustained over the long term. This argument was put forward in GMB's report, Turning the Tide, which called on the Labour Party and government ministers to safeguard defence manufacturing skills and jobs in the shipbuilding sector. We have long been sceptical of the proposals for the diversification of defence manufacturing, which have been underdeveloped and would put jobs at risk. Our qualification is that Congress has previously expressed concern over arms sales to Saudi Arabia that may have been used in the conflict in Yemen. And while the defence of our members' jobs and terms and conditions will always be at the heart of what we do, the union must have the freedom to develop its own policies in support of an ethical exports strategy. Congress, we are asking you to support both motion 288 and 292 with the qualifications I have laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Does Midlands and East Coast Region accept the qualification on motion 288? Yes, thank you. Does Northern Region accept the qualification on motion 292? Thank you. In that case, I'll put them to the vote. All those in favour of motion 288 with the qualification, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. On motion 289, the CEC are supporting, so all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. On motion 290, the CEC are supporting, so all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. On motion 292, CEC is supporting with the qualification. All those in favour with the qualification? Anyone against? That's carried. Congress, thank you. We've got through the day's business with 10 minutes to spare, so thank you for your cooperation. You've been really respectful. You've kept to your time limit, so I appreciate the speeches that you didn't, arguing over the red light. That's really kind. We'll be reconvening at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I know you all want to rush off to get to the football, the Scotland-England women's game. We look forward to seeing you at President's Night tonight at the Metropole for our 130th birthday party. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you can make it. And the doors open at 8 p.m, and there's a band. And can I say a big thank you to Patterson Brewer Solicitors who are sponsoring this event tonight. And just a note from the security staff at the venue, please don't leave any bags in the hall overnight. Okay, so I'll see you all tomorrow morning at 9:30. Or no, tonight in the President's do. Thank you.